these pictures. Actually, the picture to the bottom right, I took that today. I was there. And then if you turn the page, you can see the steep slopes. So one of them is before any of the herbaceous plants are out. That was in the early spring. But a few of them were pictures actually from today, where it's just overgrown. And they're pouring actually down the hill, right next to the water, and across into the wetland. So there we have an epicenter of invasive plants, which is coming from the compost facility. So
so one of the steps that we recommend, and with your permission, I think after you look at this problem from a holistic point of view, you'll realize you'd have to stop it from many areas. So we do encourage a facility to use long-term better management practices along the perimeter to reduce environmental impacts permanently. Also, as Tim said, there's a little-known Mountain Avenue and McKinley Place entrance to Gypsy and Kings Pond, and there's a little commercial Wildscape is having its cleanup just starting at that spot on Saturday the 16th. And that's hidden. You can't see that path. And the properties are going to be filled with invasive plants along McKinley if they're not careful. So we have to take care of that invasion of the noxious plants. And as far as desnagging the Kings Pond itself, the Northwest Bergen Utilities Authority, Northwest Bergen County Utilities Authority is the authority that takes care of that section of Goffle Brook. And as a utility, they are responsible for the condition of the water. And I think Chris could agree with that, wherever he is. Because that's why, according to the stormwater regulations. So I really think it would be great if not pressure, but if you could encourage them to do their duty. They have giant claw things. They're always cleaning out brooks and stuff. And this is just a matter of, it really wouldn't be the biggest job in the world for them. I mean, they have been responsible for the pipe broke and the sewage went into Kings Pond, and they took the responsibility for that. So they certainly can maybe be asked to do this. As far as the dam is concerned, I know there's been talk about repairing the dam, and Mr. Chabet, who's been the lead person to fix Gypsy Pond for years and years, there's a lot of, well, you can explain the new science about dams.
Well, I think that we need to look at the whole Goffle Brook as one piece, even though it crosses through many municipalities. There are multiple dams above Ridgewood where it starts in Wyckoff and in Midland Park, and then there's dams below it. So we would really need a thorough assessment of the entire corridor to see what we should do about the dam, because whatever we do at this dam is going to affect what happens in Gypsy Pond. So, and not just, chemicals pouring in or out, whether it gets removed or replaced with a new one. There's also a great disturbance would happen. And in a way, whenever I say the word disturbance, I think of Star Wars, like there's disturbance in the Force. It is, in essence, in a place where there are invasive species coming in. When you create a land disturbance, if you clear the soil, you're opening it for invasion, because we're in a time of we have all these species from other countries that are much more aggressive than the native ones that are here that we need to hold on to and keep. So if whatever we choose to do has to be thought out, and I believe that we need a professional assessment, because there's another dam just down at Gypsy Pond too, right before it goes into Hawthorne, and so there's just series and series of dams. So we can't think of doing one thing in one location without seeing how it's going to affect the entire park. However,
we do recommend, if possible, some sort of a temporary walkway across the dam so that people, for cleaning purposes, for access, like a movable plank. It's just two sections of the dam that really need to be connected so people can, if they have to get across from one part of Kings to the other part, to the beginning of Gypsy, or even to the back of Kings, you can go behind down McKinley, but that path is very steep and a little bit difficult to get to.
Part of our recommendations, if I take one step backwards towards McKinley, I don't know if you're looking at the page that has that wall of knotweed. This is the cul-de-sac at McKinley. It's a really quiet, small cul-de-sac, and all of the stormwater actually drains into what is the trail, so it just gets, it's basically scoured and it's difficult to walk along. But besides that, what we are recommending is that we treat the knotweed and the Chinese wisteria in that area now, before or as soon as possible, before it becomes larger and goes deeper into the woods, because it is a lot less expensive to do it sooner than later, because it just grows and grows and grows, and so does the cost. So right now it is actually a fraction, a small fraction in comparison to what we're planning to do and what we're going to do along Lakeview. So I'm just concerned about this section. It's on the opposite side of the park, but it's just another way that the invasive species can infiltrate and just go straight down the hill.
Okay.
That's it?
I guess yeah, that's pretty much it.
So why don't we, thank you for everything, and...
if they could just sit there, I have some questions,
Okay.
if that's possible.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, no,
Yes?
go ahead,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I was actually just admiring the photo on the last page. It's magnificent. Oh, my goodness.
So we looked at the dam, and one of the issues we had was that if we have someone from the state go there, it's likely that that dam will need to be replaced. That's our guess. And even if we were to put a walkway across there, they'd look at the dam and say it would need to be replaced. So the cost of the dam itself is significant. I believe it's probably well over $280,000 or more. And so we tried to stay away from that particular issue, at least initially, because we just didn't have the money for it. And maybe that's something we look at further down the road, but I think you're absolutely right, that dam does need to be looked at some point. And you bring up another point, a really good question is, how do you access this area? Because it really is a nice area. I mean, Mr. Shabbat and took me on a tour about a week and a half ago, and it's just a beautiful spot. I mean, just to kind of walk through there. Not a lot of people even know about it. So the question is, how do you get from parking your car on Lakeview into the park itself? And so I think we need to be a little bit creative in figuring that out, putting pathways through there to get even across the dam to the other side, or to access it via, I guess it's McKinley is the other street. I guess the question we have there too is, if people start parking along the street and going into the park, is that going to create issues? I don't know. So the thinking was, at least, with Tim, and we apologize for not getting you guys included in this, and I think what we need to do is connect after this to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page. And you did come up with some very good ideas as it relates to, I think, the fence. I think that's probably going to be important, I would guess. Coordinate this so that we're all in agreement as to what at least the initial first steps would be. And then after that, this would probably be phased in over time, and just think about what the next steps would be after that. So thank you for your presentation.
Any other questions?
I had a question or two maybe for Tim.
Oh, sure. Okay, thank you again, Ellie and Jean. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. It seems that a fence is pretty important along the composting facility. So once we do start, we are starting to treat the Japanese knotweed, and to keep it from coming back, so we don't have to retreat it. That might be something that we should look at first. So I was wondering what the cost was for the fence, if you knew that.
We didn't put the fence in as a cost here.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking.
We'd have to get that, and I'd have to speak to Wildscape as to what they envision the length of it, obviously. So Councilman Voigt's comment about getting the two parties together would be apropos.
Okay, good idea.
Well, yeah, so my thinking is, because, the fence might be more important than, say, the parking lot. So if we're going to do this in phases, and we have to get permits from the DEP for the parking lot anyway, we have to get permits from the DEP for the fence anyway, maybe it makes more sense to start that process to get the fence first, and then for phase 2, do the parking lot and whatever else, we envision doing there.
What I know about DEP permits, it's 60 to 90 days, and if they ask you, say a month goes by, and if they ask you for further information, it recalibrates the clock. So it depends how smoothly or not that process goes.
Right, but again, you have to go through it either way. You have to do it with the fence and you have to do it with the parking lot, is my point. So, that would hold true for either direction that you would go. So I would just maybe suggest getting the price for the fence and then see if, it makes sense to swap that out. If people would agree that makes sense, then.
Yeah, I think it needs to get started, so whatever the first, I'm fine with that, yeah. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, so actually, I think that even if you started applying with the DEP for the fencing, the fund isn't available anyway until the spring. So
Well, you can handle the funding two ways.
I know, right.
One way, we go out on a limb.
Right, we go out on a limb.
And spend it now in the hopes that we do get funded come springtime, or else we wait till springtime till we actually get the letter stating what amount we're funded at.
But nothing would stop us from at least doing the preliminary steps and go from there. Okay. So I actually agree that swapping out the fence, and I think we had that, I think it may have been in one of my emails, that it was one of the primary concerns of Wildscape, was that
This
fence.
also would be listed in the capital budget. That's where these funds,
Right.
where we would list it in next year's budget.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So what we kind of said is we would just swap the parking lot for the fence? Okay, good. All right, so with that, we'll open a public hearing, so anyone who has any comments or questions is welcome to come on up.
Yeah, Ellie Gruber, 229 South Irving. So we did speak to a couple of fencing companies. It would have been nice if we knew that we were both going to be here tonight. We spoke to a couple of fencing companies. What they recommended was a chain link fence with slats and a silt fence in front of it. Mm-hmm. And for 100 feet, one estimate, and just one, it was $3,000. So it would be, Jeannie estimates it's about 800 feet if you go around, so that's about 25 or 30,000. But that is just like a ballpark. We just wanted to know from a couple of fencing companies, what would they think? They said the chain link was the most sturdy, the slats prevented things from going through, and the silt fence gave the guys the idea they can't go too far towards the fence. So that was an estimate. But I really agree with you that it just gets worse and worse, and I think it is more important right now than more spaces. So thank you, Mike. Thank
you, Ellie. Yeah, and looking at the application, it says that the cost of the parking lot would be about $35,000 anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of.
George Chabet, 334 Lakeview Drive in Ridgewood. This project, I've been talking to all the previous administrations to try to get support to attack this thing, and I'm very pleased that this council has taken the challenge and has moved forward. In particular, Jeff has been pushing me to get him information and whatever he needed to move forward, and I'm happy to do that, and we'll continue. I'd also like to thank Ellie and Jeannie for their interest and giving the professional end of it. My position here is that I've been fighting over 20 years to get somebody to go down there and to, I don't know if this thing is Trump's microphone or what it is here.
It was working.
Trump's microphone. But anyhow, I'm pleased to see the thing moving forward. All of the things that were talked about, how to improve it, I know it's going to take time. It's going to require money and support, and it has to be continuous. And I suspect this is a beautiful area. I walk it every day. I live right across the street from Kings Pond, and it's really a beautiful thing, and I like to see it. I don't want to get into the details of what has to be done. That's for the ecologist over here and whatever. But I'm just happy that everybody is on the same page and we're moving forward, and I look forward to having a very pleasant sight outside my home. I had one other thing. I keep on bringing this up, and I need some takers on it, is I'd like to create a tax-deferred trust fund called Save Kings Pond Wildscape. This would give the village a steady flow of funds, hopefully, to support this activity. Then I would need I'd be willing to spearhead that, but I need legal advice and whatnot to do that. But I would suggest we do that because it's a good way of getting money into the system, and it's a lot of work to prepare all of these here grant proposals and applications, and I realize I never thought about it before, but if you could set up something once and have people donate to it every year, I think it's a way to go. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Jean Epiphan, 158 Washington Place. I just wanted to reiterate and explain the importance of, I guess, controlling the invasive species. I think the fence is crucial. However, if we do not actually treat the invasives that are there, they'll keep spreading into the forest. And the invasives also line the berm on the interior of the compost facility. And there's actually, at this moment, and I was walking around there last week and today, there's no location where there's mulch that is free and clear for use. It's covered in weeds. So if someone asks for mulch and they deliver it or they use it, they're just spreading these weeds to another location in Ridgewood. Okay. So I think that there has to be a thought-out permanent management plan to deal with invasive species, to control them so they don't spread throughout the forest and they don't spread throughout Ridgewood in the compost and in the mulch. I think that it also is extremely important to consider this soon because it will just, in essence, grow and the cost will grow. And that's the same thing for McKinley Place and that entrance. And I believe that this entrance, even though we still have to think about parking, which would probably, if people came, it would be 1 or 2 extra cars on Mountain Avenue. That entrance, if it were better and if we're taken care of, the invasives were removed, which would take about 2 years. The Wildscape Association is willing to replant with native species that actually belong at Gypsy and Kings Pond, and that's what we're also planning to do along Lakeview. I'm actually collecting seeds from the area and growing the plants that belong there, along with searching for locations where we can acquire other things like cover crops, for instance, of deer tongue, which is it's a grass that grows in the forest, but it's difficult to collect seeds, but we can purchase those. And I believe that, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words. So back to the McKinley Place entrance. This entrance, I believe a lot of maybe young people come to the woods there, and a lot of illegal activity happens. There are a lot of bottles, there's a lot of wrappers of questionable things, there are fires. There's even people, and I saw one today, I think there's somebody even living in the park. And I believe that if we clean these areas up, especially the trailheads, and make them look more inviting, have a nice sign like we do in other parks, have the trails safe to enter and not just this wall of knotweed, actually have, you can actually look into the forest from that area, even if there are bushes and trees. It doesn't seem like a barricade, and things can just go on, happen right behind that wall of knotweed that are illegal. So I believe that we have to consider a constant maintenance plan of all of these areas, and I hope that on Lakeview, it'll show a very good example of how we can treat these areas, and I would like for you to consider in the spring perhaps treating or having a maintenance plan done by Black Lagoon Management for the compost facility and McKinley. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question, because I know we are committed to, you're doing the first treatment, and we're committed to the following treatment, so we're already down that path, but McKinley's not in that?
No.
Is not, okay.
It's not in that.
And so, do you know, is that like similarly priced to what we're?
No, it's a much smaller area.
It looks smaller, that's why I'm
It is
asking.
actually pretty small. I would say it might be half the size of this room, the entire area. So,
So and so I'm just going to offer this as a thought, because we know that the fencing is, I think, Deputy Mayor said 25, which leaves us on the parking lot an extra 10, and maybe we can apply that difference to some additional treatments, at least to get started there. Is that something everyone would
Sure,
think
that's
is
fine, yeah,
appropriate?
Yeah, I don't know if that's eligible for the grant, but we could see if that's an eligible cost for the grant.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
okay, well, thank you so much.
Hey, could I make one quick
Oh,
comment?
sure.
Thank you. So we do have the Boy Scouts here, and I wanted to see whether or not they'd be willing to chip in as it relates to an Eagle Scout project for this particular park. Rocco, I know you're in the audience, and I'm wondering if you might be willing to come up and say that this is something we might consider?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I think that the Eagle Scout project, perfect location would be the trailhead of McKinley to make it safer, because it's a
Okay,
trail
yeah.
building.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Wasn't planning to speak, but Rocco Orlando, 316 Allen Place, Ridgewood, New Jersey. I am a scoutmaster of one of the scout troops in Ridgewood, and it's actually something definitely we would be interested in helping out as an Eagle project and/or a service project for our troop. It's definitely something that we're looking for. I've gone to Chris Rudenhauser and I've gone to the engineering department over the course of time and said if there's any projects. We've had Eagle Scouts go to him and discuss different projects in town, so absolutely be willing to help out. So,
Okay, thanks,
Definitely have our
Rocco. We
support.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. Got this beautiful park, but one of the potential problems we have is that there's a compost center very close to the park, actually right in the middle of the park. And I am sure that you all know that in July of 2015, the DEP discovered that there was some illegal dumping taking place at the compost center, which, if that sort of thing continues, could hurt that sensitive area. I see Mr. Calby and Mr. Rudishauser are in the audience. I wonder if you could ask them to address what steps have been taken since July of 2015 to prevent any further illegal dumping in that area. And I also have a question.
This is specifically for Kings Pond Park hearing,
Well, that's the
so
park.
I don't know that it really pertains to it, because this is for the funding of the grant for, so.
So, you know what, let me just say, I appreciate these comments, and it's certainly something we ourselves will be revisiting in the near future, because it's one of those unresolved matters that still hangs in the balance, and so we will certainly discuss what steps are being taken, and it's something we're still looking into.
Okay. Don't know if this is also going to be considered off limits, but we have permits to dump certain material there. What are we doing to ensure that only what we are permitted to dump there is being dumped there from our side? It's my understanding that grass can no longer be dumped there. I'm not sure whether that's true or not. Grass is being taken to another facility. If so, what are we going to do when the leaf season begins and people start mixing their grass in with the leaves, and that's going in up there? So I'm not sure whether that's off base or not also.
I mean, I guess it's relevant, because whatever's being dumped in there has the potential to, I guess, invade the natural setting. So I'm not sure when you're talking grass clippings, other yard waste. So it's certainly something, again, we have to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. With that, we'll close the public hearing. And we're going to move on to a presentation on a TAP grant opportunity. And I think our our village engineer will be
Right.
presenting.
I'm going to have Chris come up and discuss this, and Jeannie Johnson. Right?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Now it's on. I'm here tonight with Jeannie Johnson, who's been a longtime safety advocate in the village of Ridgewood. We've worked together on a number of grant opportunities in the past. Safe Routes to School is one of them. We recently became aware of a TAP grant that stands for Transportation Alternative Planning. Is a very short time frame for submittal. The application is due back on November 10th. Peter Fuso from my office accompanied Ms. Johnson to a training seminar, I believe it was in Patterson, right? As to what types of projects would qualify for the grant. The projects they're mostly looking for is alternative transportation, such as bicycling, pedestrian safety, and so forth. So to that end, we dug out the Bergen County bike walk plan that the deputy mayor and I had worked with the county quite a lot a couple of years ago on, and we propose that we implement the section in the plan from the Ridgewood Duck Pond near the Paramus border, a bike lane, bike route to the Central Business District, and then hanging a left on Maple Avenue and hanging a right on Maple Avenue, making a subsequent left onto Franklin Avenue, and then linking with the Garber Square bike route. The intent on this is, from the county's perspective and the plan's ideas, is to take the cyclists or give cyclists on the county bike path an opportunity to come into our business district for refreshments if it's a hot day, as an alternative ride, and so forth. We're looking at a shallow, possibly, on some of the tighter sections of the road. That stands for a shared the road configuration. To this end, I've already spoken with the assistant county engineer and a planner in the county engineer's office. Haven't given approval for it. They would like to see more complete plans, which we would produce if we got the grant funding. The reason for us to present this to the council is we need to have the council agree that we should seek this grant, otherwise we won't. And we'd be happy to entertain any questions.
So I have a question. A couple of weeks ago, I recall that there was a question about the TAP grant, and council members were asked to think about the TAP grant and some suggestions and ideas that they might have for how we could apply for that. And I seem to recollect there were a number of suggestions, including one of my own, and I'm just curious to know, because I don't recall this at all in any of the discussions, and so I'm just curious to know what happened to the suggestions or ideas that the council had and how it evolved into this idea. And I'm just wondering how that happened.
We looked at the suggestions and the ideas from the council, including yours, Mayor, and from the training seminar and the briefing I got from Peter in my office and from Ms. Johnson here, they're not going to be really considered by the grant. They're looking for pretty much targeted programs, and I think Jeannie could expound further on that.
Yeah, please.
I don't know anything about anything about it. So the TAP grants, typically, it is a federal grant, and it falls under the category of Transportation Alternative Plan, and that's what Safe Routes to School grants have fallen under, as well as the Complete Streets grants. And so the idea of TAP is connectivity and to encourage more walking and biking in safer environments. So for me, while it's not really about a bike lane, it is truly about increased pedestrian safety, because along with this, yes, we will have sharrows, or however the configuration is. The Central Bergen County Bike Plan was designed in collaboration with the state government, the county government, and the 8 municipalities that surround Saddlebrook Park. So we know that, it's very thorough. I have a copy of it if you want to take a look at it, or Chris can get you a copy of it. And the idea, again, is to connect those municipalities in a safe way, and also to incorporate some environmental things to it. So again, to connect through the Saddle River Park. For me, again, it's all about the improvements and enhancements that can be made for pedestrian safety. For example, all of the intersections in Ridgewood, there's hot spots. The Central Bergen County bike path, when they did the evaluation, they found hot spots. The hottest spot where most incidents have taken place in this area is Ridgewood Avenue and Maple Avenue. So that would include better stoplights. It would include pedestrian refuge islands. It would include curb bump outs. It would include pedestrian countdown lights. So it would really enhance that particular intersection. And we also have the opportunity to go down Linwood Avenue as well, and we can improve that intersection because that was the second hottest spot that they recognized in this survey. So again, it could be a pedestrian refuge island. As you're traveling east on Linwood Avenue by Graydon Pond, we can enhance that area where pedestrians cross. And then if we go down Franklin Avenue, we submitted a grant. I believe it was June 27th that grant was due. I can't remember exactly, sorry. And that grant really completely enhanced Franklin Avenue. So that area will be improved safety-wise incredibly with pedestrian refuge islands. And also, if we apply for this grant, we can connect all the way from Paramus Road down Ridgewood Avenue to the train station, because that's the idea, is to get people. We are a transportation hub, so we can, along Ridgewood Avenue, we can do bump outs if there's availability and there's no right-of-way purchasing to be had. We can have bump outs so buses can pull in at bus stops, so it won't impede traffic. It won't make traffic line up behind buses. So there's a lot of other things to this aside from the bike lane. While I really understand that there is a shift in behaviors and that we recognize that there are more and more people cycling all the time. Bike sales have spiked, and we know that having dedicated bike lanes in New York City has decreased incidents by 75%. So there's all kinds of information that can indicate that bike lanes are safe for cyclists, but also for motorists. When there's a bike lane, it's been proven that cars actually will drive the speed limit, that they are more conscientious as a driver. They'll recognize that there's a cyclist on the road, and then they're more aware of their surroundings. So that, for me, whether or not cyclists actually use the lane or not, just the fact that it's there will make motorists much more aware of the fact that they are actually driving this vehicle. And then the enhancements to the stoplights and the crosswalks, I just can't see saying no to it, actually.
I have a kind of an out of the box thought, and so I know John Jarrah is here, and so we've been trying to get new stoplights downtown from the county, and I know, Bernie, you got 3 of them, I think, or 4 of them a while back that we could have implemented.
We could have implemented,
yeah,
correct.
and to what you guys are doing, I'm wondering whether or not we can use the TAP grant to help with the intersections. We get the stoplights, you guys get the help with the intersections, and we're able to upgrade. I don't know, there's like 10 lights downtown that really are in dire need of upgrading. And I'm wondering if that's an opportunity for what you're doing, Jeannie,
yes, it is.
Even with Bergen County.
Yes, because it's in collaboration with Bergen County, the Village of Ridgewood, and the state.
Yeah.
So that's what's nice about this, is that, and the other thing, I think the reason why when Peter and I went to the workshop and we recognized what was available, and really what their objective was, and why I think they want to give Ridgewood the money, I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing, hoping, is because we already have a partial complete street plan that's already there in Garber Square, and that was part of phase one. I know that it wasn't advertised as such, that it was part of a phase, but I think the people that are putting this all together, and again, I'm just a grant writer, I don't know the ins and outs of all of it, but I think that that's sort of their plan, is they want Ridgewood to be able to have all of these things. We're the perfect community for this, because we are a transportation hub, and we have a bustling central business district, so I think that they really want to highlight Ridgewood and make us sort of the benchmark for the remaining 7 municipalities. So again, yes, from what I understand, the funds that are available are between $150,000 and up to $1 million, and the grants that have been given in the past they run around the $650,000, $800,000 range. So we're looking at about that. And the reason, again, as I said before, that Peter and I felt like the bike plan was the way to go was because it's already done. Engineers and architects and all of these people, I have it all listed here, who collaborated on this Central Bergen County bike path. They even have the estimated costs in there. They have, mock-ups of what each intersection can look like. So it's easy to grab that information and then put it into the grant application. And, that's the thing that is so difficult, is when these grants become available. We just found out about it 3 weeks ago, and now it's already due on the 10th of November. So we have to work very quickly. And so that's why we need to take something that is already ready, that we can just put in there, otherwise, basically shovel-ready. And we really are. Wouldn't you say that that's a shovel-ready project?
Yeah, with the use of the county plan that we just mentioned, a lot of the preliminary design work has been done. A lot of the route layout has been done. I know when the deputy mayor and I met with the county, they told us afterwards we were the most engaged and involved community. None of the other communities that the county had invited in were as involved as us. And at one of the meetings, we basically had another community there, and we hogged all the time because we were focused on it.
So, any other questions?
Will this include more bike racks? Because
Yes,
I don't see any bike racks in town, and
yes,
we're encouraging
yes.
people to ride more, but I only see them at the train station. So
Yes, we only have them at the train station. We would certainly look at other locations to put them in. The key things we'd have to consider is security for the bicycle, having them in a way that doesn't obstruct any kind of pedestrian flows on sidewalks, because some areas we have wide sidewalks, some areas our sidewalks are a little tighter. We couldn't place them necessarily if a business wanted to have a sidewalk cafe. We'd have to work with them on that.
Which also, this grant the plan, the Bergen County Bike Plan, also includes sidewalk upgrades. So if we have any crumbling sidewalks, we can also fix all of those, which I think is so great, because even, the village's sidewalks are in need of some repair too. So along with that, then that's where the bike racks could be placed, where those sidewalks are repaired.
So I just had a question. Do you have a copy of the plan, and were we
We do.
supplied a copy?
Yes.
Did we get that as background information?
I have the plan. It's in our computer system, and I've put it on a stick. It is unfortunately a 229-page document that is just too large to send anybody as a PDF. I'd be happy to either print a copy for any member of the council who would like it. It's a very nice plan, very nice document.
Could you put it on a disc for them?
I'll have to see if it fits on a disc. I put it on a USB stick.
Anyway, I kind of think the plan is pretty important to understanding.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
And
Once you see it.
without the plan and
I have a copy if you want to see it.
The website's also on Chris's memo that you could look at.
Right, that's right, he did.
Don't know if it's still available on the website. We had some problems downloading it once before. They may have only had a short duration. But we do have it. I mean, Does the council want me to print you all a set?
I mean, I think that maybe if you just printed one set and we could perhaps leave it in
I'll hand you
the
mine.
caucus room and
Right.
individuals could go in and...
I mean, I've looked at, I've actually participated in, putting together Ridgewood's section of the plan. So there's, like it was mentioned, there's 8 other towns involved in this whole plan. So, I mean, if you want to look at everything and read every detail about every other town, you can. But again, it's a 229-page document. But the Ridgewood section, the Ridgewood section, I think, is like 20 pages or so.
Presumably you could actually just print those pages into a PDF.
We've done that with the plan, and she has a copy of that. We can give you that.
I can give you
or,
this.
like I said, the whole plan.
And the reason I ask is because, I'll be perfectly honest, I know the bike path underneath the train trestle has been the, subject of some concern over the course of some time. And in fact, personally, I've never really seen anyone use it, and I know the traffic is considerably backed up. I hear from folks all the time. I've actually been in the traffic there. So I think we have to really understand the plan and the potential impact, because when you do, it seems like well-intended, but it caused other issues. And so I just would kind of want to better understand that.
I think I did not have anything to do with the writing of that grant or anything to do with that. I was out of the loop on that. But I can say that I think one of the issues behind that was we were in the middle of a changing of the guard. There was a change of council during that time and of a village manager. So I don't think the information got out to the public like it should have. And I think that I don't know what happens over there, but I do know for a fact that traffic runs slower. And I think that always makes it safer for pedestrians and cyclists. And I have many pictures of people using that bike path or that bike lane. So I know that it does get used. But I also think that it's not connected to anything. So I think if it were, I think we would see more cyclists using it.
Right.
So.
And does this plan call for like the dedicated green path, or is it like the...
No, it's Sharrow's.
Sharrow, the other road.
Right.
And,
right.
Again, I don't want to keep the emphasis so much on the Sharrows or the bike path. What I really want to keep our focus on is how much safer pedestrians will be because of this, from our youngest resident to our oldest resident. It will enhance our crosswalks. It will give us countdown lights. It will help that so much. And if we are able to get out and walk safely, we will be able to be a more vibrant and connected community. And that really is what the bottom line is for me. So I think that, worrying about, the bike lane, let's think about it. All of the positive things. Let's put our collective energy toward what the good things that can come from
Well,
it.
we certainly put our collective energy to the good things. I'm just saying that we certainly have to be concerned about the impact, and that's all I'm suggesting. I'm certainly not suggesting we shouldn't be looking at the big picture, but there are little issues that pop up, and we certainly have to be concerned with what our residents are concerned about. But great. Any other questions?
So I'm just going to make a general comment. My family has a summer home out on Long Island, and there are several bike paths. And it almost, I don't want to use the word forces, but you become much more cognizant that the path is there. And so I bike where I would normally have driven in my car. And when we have people visit us and I say, let's go into town, and then I go for the bicycle, they're like, we're going to bike into town? And they all do, but it's just, once it's there, you start to use it more, and you become more comfortable with it. So I think that's the other thing. It's a change of,
yes.
I
will also, on that note, I can tell you that this plan, there's a comfort level on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being the most comfortable, 4 being the least comfortable. Ridgewood consistently came in at a 1 or a 2 in terms of comfort level in comparison to the other 7 municipalities. So even though we feel like, oh gosh, there's so much traffic here, it really is the safest municipality in this plan.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we'll look forward to reading that. So
We'll get that to you.
All right.
to them?
I'll make
No other
copies.
questions, right?
Okay,
Okay,
great.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jeannie. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, the next two items were under Ridgewood Water. Actually, were discussed on September 7th, and the reason why it was in the folder is because we still need to do the resolution, which we'll do. The reason it was held is we didn't have the pay-to-play in time. We now have those, so they'll be on next week's agenda. So now we're up to number 4, control valves at various locations. There were 6 bid specs picked up, 2 bids were received. The control valve installations are necessary to increase operator efficiency, avoid sanitary issues at the stations, and the new valves will require significantly less maintenance and repair parts. The award of the bid is recommended for CFM Construction, Inc., and it's budgeted for in the water utility capital budget.
Any questions?
Okay. Next one is to award a contract, extraordinary unspecifiable service for the SCADA software, hardware, and support. This allows our water utility operators to communicate, control, and record the equipment and resulting data points within the water system. We have over 50 physical and separate locations, so this is a valuable tool for operating the system. The current system has been in place since 1992. Last year, the council approved software system upgrade, and the utility is now beginning the hardware upgrades. The first phase, 1A, included upgrades to the water system storage tank facilities, and it's nearly complete. Phases 2 through 5 include various hardware upgrades of each facility. The recommendation is that an EUS be awarded to Emerson Process Management. The contract will also pay for upgrades and staff training. Again, this is in the water capital budget.
Any questions?
Okay, we're now on to parking, and we have tiered parking meter prices and parking permit pricing and parking reallocation at parking lots, kind of as a combined subject, and I know Councilman Hache and Councilman Voigt worked on this, and so I'll turn it over to them.
Ramon, would you like me to start, or how would you?
That's fine.
You sure? Okay, thank you. So we talked about this last week, and so the thinking is to try to move a lot of the high occupancy parking to other areas of the town. And the first step here would be for us to try to move some of the employees from this high occupancy area. The high occupancy area is the area that's between Broad Street on both sides of Ridgewood Avenue down to Oak Street on both sides of Ridgewood Avenue. And so some of the thinking related to that is, and it also includes price increases for some of the resident permit parking. But the thinking is to try to move these employees to areas like Cottage Place with incentive parking. And so the first thought as it relates to this in Cottage Place, and I'm going to throw out kind of this is probably out of the box thinking here, is for Cottage Place to be free for employees. So we would have a dedicated amount of, say, 60 spaces for the high occupancy area employees to have their people park there for free. And what we plan on doing to make up for some of the loss as it relates to Cottage Place from the revenue standpoint is increase the parking meter rates around all of the central business district to 75 cents an hour. So that's step one. The other thing we're thinking about doing, and again, this is obviously open to discussion, is taking the $750 per year resident rate in the high occupancy areas. I'm going to call those the Hudson Street lot, Chestnut Street lot, Prospect Street lot, and Park and Ride. We're going to make them, would like to make them $1,000 versus $750. So that's part of the pricing proposal. The other thing we'd like to do is to take Hudson Street and Chestnut Street and open them up for customer parking. So the thinking again would be is to have high-profile spots on Hudson Street lot and on the Chestnut Street lot, and I'll just throw out a straw man here, is 25 spots at each place that would be exclusively for customers to park in those particular lots. So that's the other thing. We're potentially looking at trying to find other places for employees to park. So I, on a preliminary basis, reached out to the Y, and I asked whether or not they'd be willing to rent space to us for employees, potentially 25 to 30 spaces. They are in the process of kind of thinking that through, and again, for employees in the high occupancy areas to be able to park there. So in essence, we'd hopefully be able to free up probably 90 spaces in the high occupancy area. The other thing that we're thinking of doing, and I'm going to have Bob come up at some point, is to look at a kiosk for Chestnut Street as a test case, a pilot test case, to see whether or not that would be something that would actually work in that area. And, I think whenever you can come up to talk about that, you want to come up now?
Okay, Bob, yeah, thank you. Bob Rooney, Parking Utility Director.
So just a little bit of history. We used to have a kiosk up at Chestnut Street that collected everything but coins. We had paper clips in there, we had slugs, it never worked, it had ice in it. It was terrible, and from what I heard, we got it at a very good rate, very cheap. Anyway, so I looked into kiosks now, and I was very surprised at the cost. A kiosk for outside that's solar powered is about $6,500. When we looked at it with Walker, we were looking at $12,000 to $24,000. This would be weatherproof, it'd be very secure. It would collect coins, no bills, because we collect bills. That's what gets you expensive, because bills always get jammed because of the fiber in them. So we collect coins, Park Mobile, and credit cards. Maintenance fee on that with the vendor is about $65 a month, so that's almost $800 for the year, maintenance on it. Then I contacted them today, and they said they would be willing to do a pilot program. We could do 6 months, we could do a year. We would rent or lease the kiosk. There is a couple of costs that would involve as far as installation, which is like $1,000. But in any event, we could do this as a pilot program, see if that works. If it does, we could certainly move that into other lots. And even on the street. They described to me the scenario would be you'd want one at the end of each street, unless you had a thoroughfare in the middle for a large office or something of that nature, then you'd want one near the office. But they're willing to work with us and do this test. So it's something that, and they could do it, in a couple of weeks. Obviously, we'd have to go through our process, but that's how quick they're willing to turn around and target this.
And it would take a whole bunch of different payment forms? It would take
coins, credit cards, and Park Mobile. They already work with Park Mobile, so there's no learning curve there.
Okay. And just a couple of other thoughts, if that's okay. Yeah, thank you. So the thinking with all of this is to do this in increments, to test this out, see whether or not the employee parking actually works, and obviously we would try to put each employee would have a sticker so we'd know they were parking there or not, and then measure this over 3 or 4 months, see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we go to step B. And step B might be to look at the Zabriskie lot and be able to rent that out or lease that for additional parking. Step 3, I'm not sure we've gotten that far yet, but we'd look at another kind of fix for this, and again, with the intention of trying to move some of the employees out of the high occupancy areas. Ramon, do you have anything to add? You want to?
Yeah, I think, this is basically, we're refining the broad strokes that we kind of painted last week. I think at the end of the day, what we're accomplishing here is really, we talk about this parking distribution problem. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is redistribute the parking And by potentially just moving around these spaces and designating commuter parking and employee parking, we're redistributing close to 130 spots for commuters and potentially anywhere between 70 to 100 spots for employees. And again, this is all part, of a comprehensive plan, and each of the components that we sort of introduce here, it's pretty symbiotic. So it all depends on the designation properly done. It depends on being able to open up the spaces at those lots, but most importantly also the enforcement of this. And I think a great deal of thought has gone into it as well to come up with a solution that really has a minimal impact, especially when we talk about some of the minimum wage earners in the central business district, and being sensitive to the fact that what may seem to be a bargain for some folks ends up being pretty prohibitive in terms of the cost. And again, all of these things here, we have spent, once we get this done, we have spent pretty much zero. This is low-hanging fruit. It's stuff that's common sense. We're not committing the town to a significant amount of expenses. And again, it's a work in progress. It's being phased in. So phase 1, phase 2, 3, we may have 6, 7 different phases. But at the end of the day, by making the proper tweaks, and without trying to change the world at once, we have to see what the impact is, obviously, on traffic, on safety, so I think it's a good first step towards coming up with something that's a lot more comprehensive and final. So.
Great.
Anybody else?
Okay. So I just wanted to go over, kind of backtrack a little, because it's a lot of information out there. And so sure. I made these really great worksheets for everyone. Hopefully it's helpful because it was just too much information for me. So this is like a basic spreadsheet. And I thought just kind of trying to take a step back, just in terms of the commuter pricing at the train station, Hudson Street, and Chestnut. So you're suggesting to go to 1,000 on each of those? Was that your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay. And Ramon, is that what you were suggesting as well?
The tiering, there were 3 or 4 different tiers that we talked about. The only thing that I would say is, making Cottage even sort of leaving Cottage the same. So you leave Cottage at $750 for commuters, and encourage folks to really use. That's the most underutilized lot in town. Why would I pay $1,000 to park at Cottage when I could pay $1,000 to park anywhere else?
So one of the things I was thinking is, if I were looking at this, because we certainly don't want to kind of penalize people who can't necessarily afford the closer spaces. I'm just wondering if you wanted to do 1,000 at the train in Hudson and then do Chestnut and Cottage at $750. So at least there's opportunity for some closer spaces for, just that are a little bit more affordable. And then, of course, that would be on a first-come, first-served basis.
Walnut and Cottage, right?
Yeah, no, Chestnut is pretty close to the
fine,
train
yeah,
station.
that's
So Walnut, at $750,
Fine.
I think is, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah,
So much for my spreadsheet.
yeah. And Cottage is $750 too, I think is a good idea.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, great. And then, so if anybody wants to jump in, feel free.
Yeah, can I jump in just while you're on that topic? So I'm really cautious about not being sensitive to the residents, because right now we only have residents who have the commuter permits, and it's always been a first come, first serve. If you're the early bird, you get the spot in the train station, and now we're effectively saying it's going to be to those that can afford the $1,000 as opposed to somebody who's got $750. So even though you're getting there at 5:45, which one of the earliest trains is about 5 minutes to 6, you're going to have to walk all the way up from Cottage Street. I personally don't think that's fair. So perhaps there could be an allocation in these lots for, the early bird gets the worm. If you've got the $750 permit and you get there at 5:45 in the train station lot, the Hudson lot, and Chestnut, then you got there early. I just don't think they should be penalized. They're paying, many of the residents are paying the taxes that support this, and then you're going to have the employees get free parking. It just doesn't seem fair to me.
Right, and while I don't disagree, obviously if you have two folks buying a $750 and $1,000, why would anyone then buy the $1,000 if they could buy the $750?
Because there are some people who $1,000 is not going to have as impact as it would be for others. It's kind of a little bit of a class war.
So one of the things we would need to think about, to Bernie's point, is logistically how that would work from a signage standpoint or permit pass standpoint. I talked with Sergeant Chuck the other day about this, and he said, the easier we can make this, the more simple we can make this, I think the easier it's going to be to implement, and less confusing both for the residents and also for the police forces trying to figure this out. So if we made these spaces, say, closer to the train station, you made them one color, and then the ones that were further away, you made them a different color, that may be easier to implement than if you were to try to intersperse this. If you put 750 up at Hudson Street, I'm not sure how that would work. So that's just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Actually, could I have Sergeant Chuck come up and just speak about enforcement briefly? That would be helpful.
of course. Just while we're waiting for Sergeant Chuck, that's why I thought that making the Chestnut Street 750 was a good alternative, because that would be one that was closer.
Yeah.
It's much closer, but so you're not so far away, and I thought that was like a good option. Does that work for everyone?
So we would have 1,000 for the yearly commuter pass at the train station in Hudson Street for
And then
whatever
750
spots
for
we
the rest.
allocate there, and then
750 for the
everywhere
rest.
else.
Is that
Park
like
and
a-
ride too, would that be,
Right.
that's 1,000 also, right? Or-
Yeah, park and ride, my understanding of park and ride is there may be a lot of non-residents who use that, so if we made it $1,000 a year, I mean,
I
Sergeant
think
Chuck-
Sergeant Chuck can speak to that.
yeah, so,
I really can't talk about residents versus non-residents.
Right,
We
but
don't.
commuters.
yeah.
That's not an enforcement area for us, but we do know that it is an overwhelming majority, just like the train station, it's commuter passes. So the 80 spots over there on the highway, about 80. So the 75 spots there, most of them are the hang tags. So there's very few coins going through there. So I say they're daily users, not people who use it once or twice a week. As far as enforcement, the parking enforcement officers have a very difficult job because there are so many different ways to pay in town. And the perfect example is the train station. And that's why we are asking for simpler is better here. Right now, for a parking enforcement officer to issue a summons for not paying for a spot, they have 6 ways to check in the train station lot right now. You have quarters, you have Park Mobile, you have the yearly pass, resident and non-resident, and then you have the daily pass. So they have to look at the meter head at the spot. They then have to check the car for the permit sticker. They then have to check the car for the hanging pass to make sure it's the right color. And then they have to check the windshield to see if there's a daily pass in there. Then when they're done, they go on Park Mobile and they check on the phone to make sure that the person didn't pay that way too. So when we start adding another 2 or 3 ways to pay in the same lot, it really becomes cumbersome, and that's when we start finding human errors, because they will miss the color of the month, or the daily pass may not be there, and so we try to keep it simpler for them so they can stay on top of it better.
Can we, instead of color, kind of write out what lot it is, train,
Right.
or chestnut, or walnut, so if you're driving by as an enforcement officer, you don't have to get out to see, is that purple or blue or red? Just have it spelled out on the hanging
Sticker
tag.
just
I don't know
says-
if there's enough room on the hang tag, honestly. We might be able to put like a T or a H or something for that specific lot, but I don't know if there's enough room on the hang tag.
Something that's easily visible, I mean,
So the way the village ordinance is written, all cars have to be head in at all spots. So they have to, if the hang tag isn't a very distinct color or shape, they have to get out and walk around. So if you had a T on it, or for a while we had monthly passes for Whole Foods, they would have to get out and check each individual to make sure you had the proper lettering on the front. It was so, if it was distinct for the area, it would work, but if you're talking about just adding little things on the front or the back of the hang tag, it would slow them down a little bit. So if you did have all of Hudson Street could be blue and all of this could be yellow, then it would work, but we'd also have to make sure that it doesn't interfere with monthly passes. So the monthly passes also have different colors every month,
And if
which
you-
are only in certain lots.
I was going to say, if you only have a couple of different rates, it's possible that we could get hang tags in different shapes. And a shape, I think, would be probably better to discern than a color or a stripe or a T or an H. So that's a possibility as well, as long as it's not 5 different shapes. If it's 2 different shapes, I think it'll probably be easiest for them.
So that would work well when we talk about the 2 tiering, the 1,000 versus the 750. So we're talking about 2 instead of...
That would be great.
Yeah, that's perfect. So that's something we'd be looking for because it wouldn't interfere with the monthly pass color system. And it'd be very distinct and very easy to manage when they're walking through the lots. The other thing is that we're really hoping the multi-pass system would work. That integrates right into Park Mobile, and that's just going to keep them...
What's the multi-pass? What is it, sorry?
The multi-pass station that we're going to try in Chestnut Street.
Kiosk.
Oh, the kiosk.
Kiosk would hook right in.
Layman's
The other
terms,
thing I forgot to mention with the kiosk is that there's also a program that would hook up with handhelds or a plate reader on a car. They have the software, they have a vendor that would do that as well. So when these guys go through, they just hit it at the license and boom, it tells you whether it's got a Park Mobile or not.
One other question on the kiosks. Would they be, if you had an app could you connect it with the app so that people would know there's a spot there or not? Is that doable?
That isn't, it's not available in this vendor. It is out there. I'd have to go searching to find that.
Okay.
I'm just dealing with one that I know is reputable, that other municipalities have used before.
Okay, thanks.
Do you want to speak to the app? The locator for the various parking spots? It's just a little bit of a concern.
I have mixed opinions about it.
Sure.
I like its integrity. I like its idea. I have cautions about it being a distraction. Face down on a phone, looking for the spot coming up might not allow you to be heads up looking at a car stopping, grabbing that spot already that wasn't wayfinding it.
Like a race.
So it could go both ways.
And talking about enforcement, it will make enforcement of cell phone use while driving even more difficult. Because somebody say, look, I'm using the app that he told me to use. I'm looking for parking. I'm not checking tests.
Thanks for coming off the website. And yeah.
Or you have 4 people run into the same spot. Everybody's using the app, and there's an open spot, and 4 people are looking, or 5 people are looking, and then they're racing to the spot, and you have all.
They get a call for a fight, and they can break up a fight.
That's true.
But I agree with you. I think already drivers are distracted enough. I mean, you see folks. I think people look down more than they drive looking up. I think it would be, it would be lovely to be able to do that and locate it and make it easier. But from a safety standpoint, I think it's.
Yes, I mean, the wayfinding lights and parking decks are great because you're linear. You're only going one direction. Whereas here, you got cross things, you got people walking in and out. It's a great idea. We have concerns about distracted driving with it.
Okay. So just for the purposes of this particular exercise, but for just this moment, we would want to streamline and make this as simple as possible. But for while we can contemplate that, what we're doing here, most importantly, is to figure out the pricing, because by ordinance, we have to get this done really very quickly in order to have it in place.
Right.
So,
We want to have it in place by January 1st, so we need to introduce next week and then adopt in November, so it's effective by the time we start selling these in December. So we need some decisions tonight.
Yeah, so what I'm kind of thinking is, if we take the information that you've shared with us and your concerns, certainly as we're thinking through this process, we can get the pricing in place, but then start to think about logistics secondarily to that. But important, but this is like the piece that has to happen sooner.
Absolutely,
Right.
yes, I
Okay.
agree.
I think we're pretty close on a lot of stuff, at least here for commuters, because it seems like instead of residency-based pricing that we have currently, it's going to go to location-based pricing. So it doesn't matter where you're from, you could spend $1,000 to park at the train station or Hudson, or $750 to park at Cottage or Chestnut. And, I mean, you can make the passes a square and a circle. I mean, that's pretty...
So I want to make sure I'm clear what you're saying, Mike. This is resident, non-resident, is that right? Or
Yeah,
not?
it sounds like we're running into issues with colors and everything else. So if we're just going to look at the location and price the train station lot, Hudson Street at $1,000, then you could just make the $1,000 pass like a square.
Yeah.
And then the $750 pass, you can make a circle or a triangle or something completely different. So it's easily discernible when you're driving around.
So the thinking, I'm sorry, I didn't make myself as clear as I could have. This is, first of all, it's residents first who get these. And then if there's non-residents, if we have any left over, it would be non-residents. And the non-residents, we haven't even touched that subject yet because we may be filled up. So I just want to make sure that, this is, first concern is residents.
Yeah, and right now, I think, Bob, we have maybe 12 non-resident passes that we've issued this past year?
We have 12.
Yeah.
I anticipated, I used a number of 20 for 2017, and then I think we used 435, 25, something like that for residents. So that's about consistent with the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we have to charge them the same. Non-residents have to be charged the same as residents if they're going to use park and ride.
Right, but in the parking lot, but our non-resident pricing was higher.
It was higher, but under agreements with the DOT, we're not allowed to charge differential prices if they
For
use
the
that.
park and ride.
For the park and ride.
Right, for the park and ride. I just want to be clear on that.
So Mayor Knudsen, as it relates to your suggestion on Chestnut at $750, I'm fine with that.
Right.
If you want to go ahead and do that.
Right,
Yeah.
and this way it kind of makes that closer, because I agree with Councilwoman Walsh that I would be concerned too about that. That's why originally I said Chestnut, but it's fine. So that's a good idea. And then we just need to contemplate. Now, I'm going to attack the pricing on the meter. And first, would be concerned saying employees park for free because I think it's kind of a reality that, we're expecting residents to pay for parking, we expect visitors to pay for parking, and I am very sensitive to, minimum wage workers and all of that. But I do think that we have to have some cost to employees, and I'm dead set against raising any meters past 50 cents an hour because, quite honestly, our merchants, our restaurants, our businesses face so many obstacles just conducting business as small shop owners. We have online, we have malls, we have big box, we are the epicenter of retail right here, and everything is so close. So to make any increase to on-street meters or anywhere to more than 50 cents an hour is kind of like it hurts our businesses. I really firmly believe that. So I leave it out there for discussion.
I think the pricing increase, particularly in that area, I think it's a delicate issue because if I'm a business owner on Chestnut and all of a sudden my customers have to pay more for parking, I'm giving them less of an incentive to come into my store. We have a demand problem, which is not a bad thing. I think we want demand. We want people to come into the downtown. But the more that we complicate that or place any obstacles, parking at the mall is free. So I can go to the mall and not pay for anything. I think, we may eventually have some room to increase the rates, but, I think that would be more along the lines of having, let's say, if I'm a patron in CBD and I see there's a construction of a garage or some other project, I think I can kind of justify maybe paying up. But right now, in the absence of, creating anything new, I think it'd be a little tough to swallow.
So I'm hoping I can just give the logic to this and get your response to it. So the thinking is to make the, and this may not be the right word, employees who are making, let's say, minimum wage or higher, to make it painful for them to park in the areas where we want customers to park. So at 50 cents an hour, they may decide to stay there, and we may still have that issue as far as them getting to Cottage Place. And so the thinking would be with Cottage Places to make it so different that they would encourage them to park there to free up the spaces for for customers per se. And I'm just, in the public comment, I'd love to hear, after we're done with this, what the public thinks of 50 cents versus 75 cents per hour. I've talked with Mr. Jar about this, and there are a number of towns. Hoboken is one, Bloomfield is another, where they're charging 75 cents an hour right now, and that doesn't seem to be such of an issue. And most especially, I think, as it relates to the restaurants. And so we have, when you have a restaurant, you have a lot of employees in the restaurant, and they would like to park closer to the restaurant, and so they're taking up all those spaces. So the thinking would be is just to make it so different that they would want to park somewhere else.
Well, the difference first is that we had a price differential at Cottage already that didn't make it appealing for employees to park there. But the difference is if we keep Cottage at the 8-hour parking, then nobody has to run out in 4 hours and be subjected to enforcement on a repeat parking. So they have that luxury of parking, don't worry about it, you're there. And that could be just the appeal, not having to run out in 4 hours and do that. I mean, I'm not opposed to a reduced price, but I'm a little bit hesitant to just say, this is free, and for the rest of the residents, and visitors, we're going to increase the price to 75 cents an hour. I just think it's something, at some point, people start to add that into the cost of doing business. 50 cents isn't so much, but 75 cents, you're encroaching, getting closer to the dollar. I think people start to add it into the cost of doing business.
Yeah, so I think the other thing that we really have to impress upon both the Chamber and the Guild is that it is their responsibility to tell all of their employees that they really should be parking in a lot. Because when Jeff and I walked up the street and went to the businesses, a lot of them said, we just park on the street and then we feed the meter. And, their boss has to be the one to say, we're all in this together. You have to be parking in the lots. Otherwise, we're spinning our wheels if they're going to continue that practice. So I think in addition to this, we really have to get a commitment from the Guild and the Chamber that they're going to impress upon the employees that they have to be in the lots. That's my...
Mike, do you have any...
Well, I would say for at least employee parking in Cottage Place, we would have to charge them something, and some of them are making lower wages. So I would be in favor of reducing the employee rate, or taking the 60 to 65 spots in Cottage and making that 25 cents an hour, and then keeping it at an 8-hour lot for employees, so they could just go and park there if they need to. And they would have to have the sticker, of course, to use the allocated spots, so you wouldn't have open spots for 25 cents an hour that anybody could use. And the sticker could easily be seen from a window, a back window when you're driving by, I would imagine, because that's how it worked before. And it didn't see it worked for me, as I worked downtown for almost 4 years. It was a good system then. I know we had price differences, too, in the past, where it was 50 cents on the street and 25 cents in a lot, as I went through that brief history at the last meeting. But I don't know, if we could maybe go back to those numbers and look and see, or maybe talk to some of the longer-standing business owners to see whether or not that worked, if it actually did push employees or encourage employees to move to the lots, because that might make sense to charge 75 cents just on the streets and then leave the lots at 50 cents. That way it'd be encouraging employees to either park in the employee parking lot for a discounted rate, or, if they're working in a restaurant, or if somebody, has a doctor's office or like a psychologist or something downtown, they might opt to park in the parking lot or instead on the street, or maybe not. I don't know, but it would definitely work to move some, if not all the employees. I think it would work to a price difference like that would work to move some of the employees into the lots and encourage people to park in the lots rather than on the street right in front of the business, where you would want customers to go and you would want regular turnover.
Yeah, we also talk about, obviously we focus a lot on the employees and the commuters, because these are the more permanent spots throughout the day. But, here's a thought, on Saturdays, pretty busy time, a lot of families come into downtown. Maybe allowing repeat parking on the lots on Saturdays. So if you want to come into town, have lunch, go to the movies, get your hair done, shop, whatever it is. But give those folks who want to do that, who want to come into the downtown and spend a lot of time there, the option of parking in the lot, and not having to worry about coming out and feeding that meter, or worse, actually you shouldn't be doing that, moving the car to somewhere else. and disrupting whatever the activities were they had planned for that day.
I think the most important thing that we heard from Sergeant Chuck is to keep it simple. So I really think that we can't go too far afield, because I think if we kind of have all these different moving parts to this, it becomes almost impossible. It's just my thought. But again, I mean...
No, I mean, it's simple. You say meter parking, 3-hour limits, Monday through Friday, in the lots.
So obviously, that's a discussion you guys need to have, and we'll enforce whatever you decide. I just wanted to say one thing on...
Is the microphone on?
Huh?
Is the microphone on? Thanks.
I just want to talk about employee parking. So employee parking is obviously a large quantity uptown. Employees don't work for 3 hours. We don't allot them areas to park. We're not creating a haven for them to go to, so they're going to continue to park in the street and move their cars. And if the lots are 3 hours, they're going to park their car in the lot in 3 hours and then move it to the street, because they have to move their cars anyway. Cottage Street, although we're trying to make it enticing by price, is still inconvenient. If there's another lot that we could maybe not reduce the price on, and again, this is a discussion for you guys, but allow to funnel the employees to go to, you're going to open up your higher density areas for your customers. So that's something I know we've had a lot of discussions with some of the larger employees, I mean, a lot of the larger employers, which are mainly the hair salons and the restaurants. And the employees are flat out telling us, there's nowhere for us to park. We work more than 3 hours, and there's nowhere for us to park except for all the way down the street. And then, you know, if I come in at 4 and I'm 5 minutes late, I can't park down there, I have to come here. And then later on, when I have a couple minutes, I'll move the car. So that's already what they're telling us, and that's what we're seeing with when we started to look into repeat parking that you guys asked for. We noticed as soon as we started really addressing it, that the only thing they're doing is just moving cars around in circles. They're not going downhill, they're just moving cars in circles. And they're actually working with each other to move the cars around. So it's now a team effort to move 5 cars because there's still nowhere for them to park that's convenient. I do think that employees still need some convenience, like Walnut Street lot used to be 8 hours, and it was full every day. Now it's half full, it's 3 hours.
Which one?
Walnut Street lot.
Yeah,
And I was actually just going to, while you were talking, I was thinking about Walnut Street lot too, and I was going to say, well, you know, before there were different, some spaces were 12 hours, some spaces were 2 hours, and that was within parking lots. So maybe keep Cottage Place 8 hours, and half of Walnut turn into long-term parking, 8 hours, to encourage employees to go there. It's kind of centrally located. You could funnel them there. They don't have to go out, like you said, move around, and then you don't have to worry about stickers and colors and shapes and everything else. It's just, you know, 1 meter you can park at all day, and another meter you have to move. So that might, to your point, encourage employees.
So Mike, I think that's a good idea. So Cottage Place would be extended parking for employees, and then part of Walnut Street would be, and maybe we just, but Walnut Street may be 50 cents an hour versus 25 cents an hour. So if they wanted the less expensive rate, they just have to walk a little bit further. I mean, does that sound reasonable to you, or?
I mean, we have 87 spots at Walnut, 87. And we were talking about moving 30 commuter spots there. And that lot, I mean, there's always plenty of parking there. I think it's a good place. If employees are looking for something that's convenient, go at it.
Yeah.
So the employees are going to be getting a sticker, correct?
Yes.
That's going to show that they're, and again, I'm just going to go back to, it's up to their employer to say to them, get to work 5 minutes early and walk from Cottage Street. I mean, I think we're really, you know, treating them with kid gloves, and, you know, we're jumping through hoops to get them this. Get to work 5 minutes early. I'm sorry.
I agree. I think it's kind of a little bit of a discipline, honestly. I think that, you know, if somebody's late for work, they're late for work. I mean, that's their problem, not ours. And so, look, I think that just to kind of bring this back, I think that we have a starting point, and this is, we're not going to get this with precision accuracy right now, but we need to at least have our starting point and move this along. And I do think that, you know, a discounted price for employee is a good idea, and maybe that will encourage them. I also agree with Councilwoman Walsh that it's really imperative that the shop owners say, don't do this, you're hurting our businesses, you're hurting our business. And, if they're going to allow it to continue, then, we can only do so much, and then sometimes you have to help yourself, and I'm sure most of them are.
So Mayor Newsom, to your point, we certainly can measure this and see if it's having an effect. So, to start, and I think you're right, we should start at some point and put a stake in the ground and see if it works, and then measure it over the next 3 or 4 months. So I'm okay with what you're suggesting.
And just being mindful, and I don't want to go out onto this other thing, but we are hopeful that we're going to have a presentation by Uber in a couple of weeks as well, and so this is something that will give us other options and opportunities, and so, we're working on one piece of the puzzle right now, and so.
May I just go through, so we can summarize, so we can get to the bottom line here?
Right, the meat of
Okay,
this.
so $1,000 in the train station, Hudson, Chestnut?
Yep.
Okay.
No,
Hudson train station.
$750 at Chestnut?
Yeah.
And I thought it was Walnut was $750.
Same.
750 as well.
Chestnut and Walnut?
And Cottage.
Okay,
Cottage.
Chestnut, Walnut, Cottage. Okay, and those are all resident?
Yep.
Yes.
Right, okay. So train and Hudson is 1,000, park and ride has to be 750. Well, then you're charging your residents 1,000 to park there. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
1,000.
okay, that's fine, 1,000.
Okay.
Okay, the meters are going to be 50 cents or
50
75 cents?
cents.
50 cents.
Do you want to,
Wait, the park and ride's going to be 1,000?
That's
Yes.
what I asked. That's what I just said.
I mean,
What is it now?
Well, it's
750.
It's 750
Because then you're penalizing the
for
region, not just
residents.
Ridgewood.
750 for residents, and it's 1,500 for non-residents.
Well, no, I thought
But we
we-
can't,
Yeah.
we
Park and
cannot any longer. So,
So leave it at 750.
750
750 is fine.
for park and ride? Okay. Okay, so,
Street pricing stays at 50. That was your next question, right?
okay, so street is 50,
Cottage should go back to 50, at least, unless you want to
cottage back to
try.
50.
are you all inclined to, 50 cents? I'm still kind of stuck on this.
No, I'm really,
Do you all- do you-
personally pretty stuck on 50.
I know you are. That's okay.
Is everyone else in agreement with 50 cents except for Councilman Voigt? Yes?
Yeah, I
I'd say
think
that's
so.
correct.
Yeah, I think so now. I mean, if we, once we really start with a parking garage, then, then we could raise it to 75 cents, because then, we could say, well, we need the revenue to build a parking
Right,
garage,
well,
which
we're
we
not
will.
doing it right.
But, absent, that happening immediately, then
Okay.
we should probably just keep the pricing the same.
Okay,
Because I think there would be backlash from the business community, because, people would obviously say, well, you're not building a parking garage, you're just raising our rates.
right. Okay, so I think we have a majority agreement on that, correct? Okay, so Hudson Street, how many spots did you want to allocate for shoppers, Hudson and Chestnut?
The thought was 25.
25 in
Yeah,
each
just I don't
lot?
know if how you guys feel about that.
25 to shoppers, or
Shoppers,
Yes,
diners,
shoppers.
whatever, in Hudson and Chestnut.
out of 76?
76 and
Total.
65.
Well, how are you splitting that up? Because we have to write the ordinance specifically.
Right.
So you said 25.
25 seems kind of low for shoppers.
Yeah, I would say 35 for shoppers, and the difference goes to the commuters.
35 in each lot, because Chestnut, how many
No,
spots?
35 in Hudson.
And how many in Chestnut?
Chestnut is 65 total.
So how many of those are going to designate for shoppers?
30.
Diners?
Did you say 30?
30.
30.
30, so it's 35 and 30 for shoppers, diners.
And those would be in high occupancy or high visibility areas.
Right.
Yeah, commuters and towards the back of the lot, and
Not
shoppers and
commuters.
diners towards the
Not
front.
commuters.
Okay.
Diners and shoppers, right. So, okay, or people going to, service places or law offices or whatever, right. What are we doing with Prospect, by the way?
Okay, so I thought that should be, I think it's 58, so I thought it would go 29 shoppers.
Did you just change it? 35 and 30, right, is what you just told me? 35 for Hudson and Chestnut is 30, correct?
Yeah. But Prospect you're talking about now.
Right, okay. and in Prospect, how much are we charging for the commuter thing there?
Oh, right, we didn't,
I had 1,000.
okay. All right.
1,000
Good.
at Prospect?
Yep, sounds good.
Chestnut's closer.
Yeah,
than
but we want to
Prospect.
keep that at a lower price for people who don't, because we want to just kind of keep it a little fair. We want to give opportunity.
So Prospect is 750.
No, 1,000.
Is it 1,000? Okay, Prospect, okay. Okay. Prospect is 1,000, okay. 35 and 30, and those, okay, and then how many spots in the Cottage Place lot do you want to designate for employees?
It's at 60, right?
60 to 65 here, yeah.
60?
60.
60 for employees. Okay. My question is this. When we had the CBD employee permit in the past, we actually charged them $15 for the sticker. And it allowed them to park at meters, but they were long-term meters, and they charged whatever price it was for the meters at that time. But we did charge them a fee for the sticker itself, and it allowed them to park at those meters. I don't know if you want to do that or not, but I'm just throwing it out there.
You mean the long-term meters for commuters?
No,
No, this is for employees.
Yeah, so you pay
Okay.
$15 a year for the sticker, and then that covers the whole year, and you can park there.
Well,
And
it lets them
park
park at the meter and pay the meter
at the
still.
meter and pay the meter.
But without that CBD employee sticker, they couldn't park in those spots.
Right.
Right.
I think that that's the right thing to do.
Okay, so is $15 the right price, or you think $20, $15, and we stopped it, I don't know, this program probably 6 or 7 years ago. So is it $15, is it $20? I'm not trying to gouge them, I'm just asking
The
your...
fee is to be able to do the processing and handling of the stickers and getting them, so it's the staff work. So depending on how much time it's going to take to do that, I mean, usually it's the beginning of the year, the first months of the year.
Well, employees are different because they come in all the time. Because employees, especially in some of these places, change over.
So then in terms of personnel, do you feel that that's fair?
I would say close to 20, because what we have to do is we have to check their pay stub, we have to get their license, we have to copy it, we have to, get all this information to make sure they qualify, and then we still have to issue the sticker.
Right.
So $20 covers them to park at those spots, but
for the
still
year.
pay the meters. Okay, so $20.
And maybe we could give them an amnesty if they all come in January. Right?
Stickers. Okay, so, and in those 60 spots at Cottage for employees, I know we're reducing it 50 cents, but for them, we're making it 25 cents for those 60 spots? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. 25 cents, okay.
So if they're
So,
not motivated to park there for a quarter, I don't know what else will motivate, because that would really motivate me
That would
at
definitely motivate me.
such a deep discount.
And did we cover employee spots at Walnut?
no.
No.
So that's what the other one we have to do. So Walnut, you were going to designate a certain number, how many?
30?
For employees? Wow, that,
It'd be roughly one-third, one-third, one-third.
Okay.
Commuter, employee, and shoppers.
I'm okay with that with employees. But we charge them not 25 cents, but they get 50 cents, because...
50, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
50.
We're still going to charge them 50
Yeah,
there.
there is 50 cents, right.
Yeah.
50
There's
cents.
got to be some motivation.
And wait, and those meters, those 30 meters in Walnut are going to be changed to the 8 hours?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but all the others are going to remain at 3
Yes.
in Walnut?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is non-resident commuter pass.
Great.
And that you're going to reduce down to $750. That was Jeff's proposal. Not anymore?
No, it was, I think it was 1,000, but they'd only park at Cottage Place.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
it still is a reduction over what we had,
Right.
which was 1,500.
Yeah.
Okay,
So non-residents only can park at Cottage.
and that's what it is now, too.
Very good. It's the same as it is, right. Perfect.
Right, okay, so and that's non-resident, and so that will be 1,000. Okay, let me just, okay, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that we need to do. I think that's it, so let me go through it one last time. Resident parking pass is $1,000 at the train station, Hudson, and Prospect. It's $750 at Chestnut, Walnut, and Cottage, and Park and Ride. Okay. The streets are at 50 cents. Cottage goes back to 50 cents. Shoppers and diners in Hudson is 35. Chestnut is 30. Cottage, 60 for employees, and that goes to 25 cents. Walnut, 30 for employees, that stays at 50 cents, but those 30 spots go to 8 hours. All the other spots in Walnut will remain at 3 hours. And then $1,000 for a non-resident hang tag, and they can only park in Cottage, and that's for a non-resident.
Right.
Okay. Okay, good.
Clapping.
So how are we going to let everybody know about this?
No, we had 1,000 at Prospect.
Yeah.
No, the number of parking spaces for...
Were you doing Shoppers at Prospect? I didn't know that you were.
Yes, you said 29.
Is that what you're doing?
29 Shoppers.
Okay.
29 and 20, right, we split it.
Prospect is 29? Okay. And, okay, 29. Okay, I'm sorry. And that's what you were asking for the Shoppers? Okay.
All right. What was your question?
How many
The
commuters?
any number of commuters can go there because the
29.
RPP allows people to park in any lot for free, except any resident who has that hang tag. Prospect, because Prospect you're charging 1,000.
Yep.
So but you're not limiting the number of people who park in any of these lots for commuters, right?
Yeah, we did.
For
Didn't we split
for
it? We said the
commuters?
difference, sure, we said,
For Prospect.
right, we said regular 29 for shoppers, and then the difference
29.
goes to
The
commuters.
difference,
The
right.
difference,
It'll be
I'm sorry, the difference
in
went to
each con-
commuters.
right, in each-
Actually, the reason I had to say difference was because I had two different numbers on parking space inventory and Prospect, so I was just going to the difference.
Well, the difference could be commuters, it could be shoppers possibly,
Right.
if there were spaces left over.
Right.
Right, okay. So we don't really have to delineate the number for commuters. We really have to delineate shoppers, diners, people
Exactly
going
right.
to businesses.
Correct.
Right, okay. All right. Did we cover everything? Yes.
I think we're good.
This is going to be about 5 or 6 ordinances, so that's why I want to make sure that we get everything.
Look at it.
Chris, you taking notes? I have it, I think I've got it.
All right, so is that,
Oh, wait, when did we ever decide with the kiosk? We kind of got lost at that.
so what, we should do the pilot
We're
program.
gonna move forward with that?
Hopefully for next week, I'll have everything, the rates back, what it would cost to rent, things of that nature, and we can make a decision.
Right.
Well, it'll
For now, we
be
still
at
got Park Mobile there, and,
26th.
we can function.
It'll be October 26th.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, whenever.
Okay, the next work session.
Do the kiosks now have even like little cameras or anything like that? Do they have like security on them?
That could be, but one of the suggestions would also be to put a camera focusing on the kiosk to
Oh,
make certain
okay.
that it doesn't get, we can keep track of any damage
Right.
to it or anything else.
Okay, great. Good, thank you. All right. So we're done with that piece of parking, right? So we're going to move on to New Jersey Transit. Okay, great. We're moving on to New Jersey Transit parking garage.
And that was Councilman Voigt, who
Yes.
spearheaded that.
Mayor Newsome, no.
Oh, you're up at bat here.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
The thinking with New Jersey Transit Parking Garage is to begin communication with them to see whether or not they might be willing to assist us as far as funding a garage. Not sure where the garage would be. It may be at Walnut, it may be at Hudson, it may be closer to the train tracks. But, and I know this happened in the past, I guess, there was some interest in it. And it's really just an option for us. It's just to keep our options open as we're kind of going through this. It's not necessarily to move forward in an aggressive manner. It's just to open a dialogue, just find out what the restrictions are, what they might offer, whatever else, and to put that on the table, and for us to kind of dwell on it for whatever period of time. And the thinking behind this would be is the more options we have, the better off we're going to be, I think, in the end, in trying to figure out what the right thing to do is with our parking. And it may also help in negotiations. So, for instance, if we decided to actively go after Zabriskie, we may have an option with the parking garage, and that may reduce the price for what Zabriskie might charge us, them knowing that we had this as an option. So that really is the thinking behind this. That's all it is. It would be a couple of the council people going to talk to the development people at NJ Transit and coming back and reporting back to the council as to this is what we found, this is what they're thinking, they may have the money, they may not have the money, and then just to kind of move forward from there. That's really all it is. So.
Questions?
Look, I think many hands make light work, and if these guys can help, make our load a little bit lighter, great. My only concern would be just to understand what kind of strings come attached to any money. I don't think they're going to do it just out of the kindness of their heart. Right. And I want to make sure that we can retain as much control as possible of the pricing, the amount of spaces that we allocate to residents and non-residents, just to see what that looks like. The numbers make sense, because we have to weigh sort of the benefit of having their help, and then at the end of the day, what does that mean for us from a revenue standpoint if we're, building something that's going to cost us more just to accommodate. So it's weighing, I think, the balance of the costs and benefits. That's all.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So my thought on this is just that we just learned with the park and ride, as we all know, that at the park and ride we can't leverage the resident, non-resident issue, and you have to open up to everything. And this was much of the issue that revolved around the BCIA involvement with any potential garage. So I say, think about it, what you're contemplating, because it could be.
Oh yeah, no, this is no contemplating move aggressively forward. It's just information gathering for us to be able to use this as an option. It may be an option, it may not be an option. We may find out there's too many restrictions, too many strings attached. We should just forget it. So,
never hurts to ask. It depends on what the response is, but it never hurts to ask.
Okay, so we're just going to move on to budget items, update of open space master plan survey, and this actually is something that came up a while ago, and I know that the open space committee had worked on a survey, and there's a little bit of a cost involved there of $1,200, and for whatever reason, we just were never able to find the $1,200 to allow them to proceed with the survey, which would have actually garnered a tremendous amount of good information, and in the long run may have actually saved us money and time and effort. So I think, Jeff, if you want to talk further about this, it's something, like I said, I visited and looked for the money, I think, over a year ago, and we couldn't get it.
Thank you, Mayor Knudsen. Part of this would be to, I think, update our master plan. We have to figure out what the residents are looking for from an open space standpoint. So the way it's been designed, it's going to be a randomized sample of our residents, and then that information obviously would be used in determining what the needs are for open space. So that's really basically what it is. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I mean, this was basically when I was liaison to open space. This was, the survey and everything's pretty much been completed, and the cost was just associated with mailing out the notifications to the random sample to get them to participate through SurveyMonkey and everything else.
Right.
So,
exactly.
I mean, this is basically ready to go from the way I understand it, and from the work that's been put into it by some of the members of the committee, and they're just looking for funding for mailing.
Right. Okay.
Can I just ask a question? How are you going to do the randomized survey?
So it's going to be, I think, from the the phone book address. That's a good question.
Actually, what I will say that Wendy Dockeray and Ralph Curry came, I forget how long ago it was, but they came here and they actually very carefully laid out how they did the random sampling. I don't remember, but they were very detailed about it.
So by block and lot, or?
I just don't remember, but they did go through a very detailed scenario. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I'd have to, I'm sorry, it worked like a year and a half, maybe longer on the survey, so, I mean, formulating the questions so they're not leading, so they're just pretty benign, that people can answer them honestly, and then, of course, the random sampling, because there was a lot of discussion of, well, how are we going to get a sample, and what if you get too many sports people, and they say, oh, well, we just use them for sports, or we get too many people who just go to the park and have a picnic, and they say, well, we don't care about sports, we just want to go to the park. So they basically worked through a system of where they just kind of splat out several hundred residents, just a random sample of addresses in Ridgewood, and they're the people who were picked to contact.
Okay. Great. No further questions on it. We're moving on.
The next one is for the award King's Gypsy Pond Grant. That's just because we'll be doing that resolution next week to apply for that. The next one after that is awarding contract for rebid of furnishing and delivering of polymer for the water pollution control facility. There was one holder and one bid. George S. Coyne Chemical Company was the sole bid, and they've successfully delivered the polymer in the past. The next one is, I'm sorry, were there any questions? The next one is awarding a partial award, or a second award actually, for street paving. We did make an initial award for street paving of $1 million to start the paving program. We now have an additional $600,000, which we've put together some previous paving and had leftover money, and so we joined it into one in order to have the $600,000. So, and it will go to the current contract, DLS Contracting, and it will allow us to continue the paving work.
I just had a quick question. So is this going to, because the I guess the old accounts were cleaned up, is this going to allow us to pave more roads this year, or are we paving the same amount of roads just for a discounted rate?
I'll have Mr. Rotherhauser come up and speak to that.
Good evening again. What was the question, excuse me?
Does this allow us to pave more roads than we initially thought this year?
The initial award was half of what the bid from the contractor had been, because that was the only money we had available. What we did now is we cleaned up a number of old paving contracts from prior years, and the residual amounts is what this award is to the same contractor. It will be for additional work.
Okay, so it's over and above what we thought we would do this year, so we're getting...
Yeah, but we're not triggering that 20% over the bid award item for DCA where they'd have to be notified, because we had only made a partial award of about half what they had bid.
Oh, good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Chris?
The next item is to renew the lease on the Chestnut Street lot garbage pad. This is to have a private vendor manage and operate the dumpster pad in the Chestnut Street lot. It's used by nearby restaurants to get rid of their trash. It used to be that each restaurant maintained it. It didn't work, so we went a while ago out to bid this. It was bid in 2015, and it was awarded to Conquest Construction, and they agreed to a renewal for an additional year at the same price, going from November 1st of this year to October 31st of next year for $1,260.
Any questions?
The next one is for the, the update of the health department license fees. We have not increased our retail license fees for restaurants and food establishments in several years. Our food establishments actually buy both the retail license fee as well as ice fees. So apparently these ice fees are now obsolete. So what the proposal is to take the $25 for the ice fee and put it on to the retail fee. So really they're paying the same total amount, it's just that it's now under the retail license fee. So it's better because, like I said, the ice licenses are now obsolete. In addition, they're going to put in for a proration for the licenses, so if they're sold after July 1st, they'll pay half price. So that will help the businesses who come in halfway through the year.
Any questions?
The next item is award of contract for equestrian programs for Parks and Rec. This program, they've used them for the past 2 years, and actually the program sessions have increased, and it's going to exceed the threshold of 17.5, so we need a resolution for it.
Great. Questions?
So I'm just going to make a general comment. I had sent to the former village manager, and I think the last time I was on the council, I had questioned Matt on this, if we post the equine activity statement anywhere near where this is going on. It's basically a statement that says that horseback riding could be dangerous, and that, it's called the equine activity.
Okay, I'll check into it. I don't know, so I will check in and let you know.
It lets parents know that there are dangers associated with riding.
I'm sorry. Okay, the next one is a stigma-free task force advisory committee, and Mayor Knudsen and Dawn Citrullo from our health department have worked on this together.
Okay, so maybe Dawn wants to come up and just speak a little about this. So we're really excited here. Come on up. Oh, here we go.
Good evening.
Hello.
This is Rosemary Khalil. She's a Ridgewood resident, and she's interested in participating in the task force. She is also on the Paramus Stigma-Free Task Force, so she has a lot of experience with it. So I asked her to speak to you tonight a little bit about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi,
Welcome.
good evening. I'm Rosemary Clay. 1 in 4 people will be affected by mental illness in their lifetime. It's hard to believe that mental health stigma still exists, yet despite what we wish were true. Stigma is very real and often the reason those who could benefit from behavioral health don't seek it. The Stigma-Free Initiative began with a vision from the Paramus resident and mental health advocate Marian Uzi, and Paramus was the first town to become stigma-free. The initiative spread throughout Bergen County, and Ridgewood signs on very quickly. However, we as a town have yet to form an official task force and to really get the initiative going. Dawn and I are here tonight as ambassadors of Ridgewood Stigma-Free Zone movement to reintroduce our town's commitment to being stigma-free.
Thank you. So we actually became a stigma-free by resolution in 2014, and then we had to kind of put together this task force and officially create our committee, which everyone can see here that we've done. And I hope I got everything right, Dawn, and that you're happy with the format that we used. And we will have 2 stigma-free ambassadors, which I know Dawn is stepping right up to the plate, and she's going to be one of them, right? Okay, great. Do you want to add anything?
Just that we've just gotten started. We did, most of you saw, we walked in the parade. We had such a great turnout. Rosemary jumped on the plate with me. We had about 27 people walking, and it was really wonderful just walking through town. People are saying, "What is stigma-free?" Even my husband was running, telling people what it was. So I think we really got the word out there. And since then, I've gotten a lot of emails from residents who are interested in participating. We did a mental health first aid class, and we also represented at the Wellness Festival. So I think this is a great start. I'm really looking forward to taking this to the next level. So thank you for your support.
It's amazing. And thanks again for rallying for that July 4th, because in a very short order, you really put it together.
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
I was so proud. I had my whole family there, and it was great. It was really fun. Yeah.
So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody have questions on that? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The next is a draft ordinance concerning tree preservation. It's been prepared with input from the Village's Shade Tree Commission. It allows for preservation of the village's tree stock on both public and private lands, provides a means for maintaining the village's tree stock, and I guess I'll have Councilman Seaton, Deputy Mayor Seaton, speak about this.
Thank you. So this is something that started last year, or maybe a little bit over a year ago, at the Shade Tree Commission. We came up with some ideas to kind of replenish some of the street trees and protect some of the canopy. where we can in the village. And I'd like to thank Engineer Chris Rudishauser for putting this together and getting it to us. There's several things. I know we got it a little bit earlier today, so I'm not sure if everybody had a chance to go through it, but oh good. I was pretty busy. I got a chance to go through it all, but I knew a lot of the stuff that was in there. So basically it allows the village to, some of the highlights of it, it allows the village to inspect infested or diseased trees on private property, and that would help to kind of prevent the spread of invasive insect species such as the emerald ash borer, because they don't distinguish private property from public property. So they're going to just infect whatever tree, and we could do what we can on the streets, but if I'm pretty sure about that, but if there's any of these invasive insects that could be really damaging to trees on private property, then that would kind of give them a haven to really populate the area. So that would help us address that issue. It definitely helps with stormwater management, because trees do soak up a lot of water. They prevent soil erosion, so it would help with our stormwater management efforts in the village. It requires replacement trees for trees cut down that are 6 inches in diameter, and that's measured averaged at the your breast height, right about the middle of your chest, and you measure the tree and see where it falls in that category. Then there's it gives another issue that came up a lot of times. The arborist really didn't have any real authority or teeth to kind of say whether a tree should stay, and a lot of times residents would opt, especially with the sidewalk replacement program, instead of doing a bump out, which is slightly more expensive but could preserve the tree, they would just take down the tree and put in the sidewalk. So this would give the arborist the final say to determine whether or not somebody could just take down a tree in the village's right-of-way, or if it's could save the tree to do a bump out. And there are several other things in there, permitting costs and things that we could keep track of. How many trees are in the village and what's being taken down and what's being replaced. And that's really it for my summary.
Okay. I just wanted to point out from what I read, and maybe you can clarify it. So on either public or private property, a permit would be needed to take down a tree?
I believe it's private. Chris is here. I mean, I believe it's public and private property. Okay. I know it's private property. I'm not sure. Well, people can't take down trees, public trees anyway.
Right, but private property, it's requiring a permit. It's also requiring a permit fee, depending on what kind of removal it is. And then they would have to replace the tree, and if they don't, they'll pay into an escrow fund. Is that correct, to replace it somewhere else in the village?
Yes, and it's similar to some of the ordinances that they have in Dumont and Paramus and some neighboring municipalities.
Okay. So.
Hi, Chris.
Good evening, Mayor and Council again. Deputy Mayor is pretty succinct. The intent of the ordinance is to maintain our tree count. Our tree inventory in the village has taken some severe hits in the last few years from some storms. Hurricane Sandy was a bad one. The Halloween nor'easter also did a lot of damage to our trees. The intent here is that if a resident wants to remove a tree, as the Deputy Mayor said, greater than 6 inches in diameter at breast height, that's an industry standard measurement, they'd be obligated to get a permit and either provide for a replacement tree that is of like a 1.75 inch diameter, or if they don't want that tree on their property anymore, pay into an escrowed fund a sum of $150 per tree, which the village would then use to plant replacement trees in the public right-of-way and on public lands. That way we have a funding mechanism to start to slowly reforest some of our streets where we lost so many trees over the past few years. If there's any questions on this, I'd be happy to try to answer them to the best of my ability. This is a draft ordinance. I really would encourage everyone to read through it. If there are things that are objectionable or I didn't write in a clear, logical manner, feel free to point them out, and I'll try to clarify it. I am having it reviewed by a couple other parties also, so that in the end, we produce a cohesive document that the village can consider and going forward with.
Just a quick question. What happens if somebody takes, this is private property too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So if somebody takes a tree down, or is there a fine for I mean, how would that work? I mean,
If an individual or homeowner were to remove a tree on their property with this type of ordinance in place, and they did not get a permit, then they could be subjected to a municipal action involving the municipal court. There is also lots of provisions that I presented in this ordinance if the tree is a hazard, if the tree is dead, dying, or diseased, and a tree expert, and I define that also in the ordinance as either being a New Jersey certified tree expert or a member of the International Arborist Association at their tier of expertise. If they make a determination the tree is ill, diseased, a hazard, then it becomes exempt from the provision of this ordinance. This ordinance is geared more towards someone wanting on their property to remove a perfectly healthy tree for their personal purposes. Then they would either have to replace it, or they could pay the $150 per tree into the escrow funds, as I said, to reforest our public right-of-ways.
and if it's less than 6 inches, I mean, they can take it down.
If it's less than 6 inches, it's exempt from this ordinance because I had to set a parameter, and once you start looking at 1 inch, 2 inch trees, real saplings, it could be annoying for both the residents to do that, and also would be more difficult to administer something such as this.
So I would imagine that the bulk of this would probably be kicked in during site plan reviews at the planning board level. If somebody wants to add on to their house, or if they want to widen their driveway or do something like that and have to take down a tree that's perfectly healthy, then they have the option of either putting that somewhere else on their property or paying into the account, and we could start to put those trees back in on the streets that we lost through the storms and other actions.
Yeah. I also thinking about this, I have to better define invasive species. We heard earlier tonight a presentation on Japanese knotweed as an invasive species. There are invasive species trees that are not very desirable. One is, in my opinion, is the Atlantis tree. Some people affectionately refer to it as a Patterson palm tree. It grows best in ghettos. Unfortunately, we have a few in the village. I wouldn't mind seeing them disappear.
Okay.
And just on this, we have a shade tree meeting Tuesday. So the committee didn't get a chance to look at the final version of this. So I'll bring this to the committee to the commission on Tuesday, and then if there's any major issues or anything like that, we could, or any major changes that need to happen, maybe we could do that, beforehand, or just postpone the introduction, so that, if there's any major concerns or changes that come through the Shade Tree Commission, we wouldn't have to introduce this and then a month later vote to kill it, and then reintroduce it with the changes, and then vote.
May I suggest that we just, because you got this just, earlier today, that we bring it back again on the 26th, and this way the Shade Tree will have time to, give their opinions and their suggestions, recommendations, and you can bring that then, and then we can discuss it again more fully. Is that?
Yeah,
okay?
Mike, I was also going to say that there's a number of legal issues that are brought up by this that I haven't had the chance to talk to Chris or you about, so that'll give us the time to do that.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Okay. The next
Thank
one.
you, Chris.
Is it okay? The next one is a draft ordinance on institutional uses, which has been the subject of much discussion at the planning board over the past several years, and this is Mayor Knutson.
Yeah, so real quick, I know I've repeated over and over that we have 189 action items from our master plan review and examination. Of the 189 action items, there were some that were just simply administrative. We could clear off the desk very quickly by just cleaning up some language in existing ordinances. And so what we did was we went through these 189 action items and isolated those out, and Blaze and I are picking a couple at a time, and so you'll start to see these now at every work session. And this one basically cleans up the language, defining more clearly houses of worship, institutional uses, and public utilities, and the required buffer zones and the usage within the village. And I think that this will go back one more time to the planning board, and I know this is really just a draft right now, so what we'll likely do is bring the cleaned-up version, I guess, to the 26th also, and at that point, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to go over it and review, make any modifications. What I'm just unclear about, and I didn't have the opportunity to ask Blaze about it, was the indication that a revision was previously introduced by the prior council but was not adopted, and I don't know if he means a prior council or the prior council, because I just don't remember this popping up. It was
It must have been a prior council. I don't
not
remember seeing
the prior
this for a
council,
few
right?
years.
I was like,
And just one question, Mayor. If we bring it back on the 26th, do you have any idea whether or not Blaze will be done with his draft, and will it have been reviewed by the planning board then, or?
yeah, we will
think it will be done by
we'll
then?
definitely get that taken
Great.
care of. Any questions on that?
The next one is a encroachment agreement for Tito's Burritos. They are replacing several gooseneck lighting on their sign, and it'll encroach into the village's right-of-way very slightly. So this is something we do quite often with lighting for signs in the central business district. The next one is for lighting policy in parks, and that's Mayor Newton.
Okay, so I don't have mine in front of me, actually. Here? Oh, thank you. Right, so we've had a number of complaints from residents after the parking lot lights went on at the in the Habernickel, specifically Habernickel parking lot. The lights are very different than lights that are previously installed in other parking lots, and because of the elevation of the Habernickel lot, they tend to cast down more into the backyards and into the overall neighborhood. I think the village staff has made some effort to reduce some of the lighting there, but it still seems to be a pretty big problem. And in fact, where residents have had the enjoyment of their full property and the darkness, and actually some people do enjoy just sitting out in the dark without that kind of light encroachment into their world. So what we thought to do was to create a policy that gave some relief to residents from the non-stop lighting that occurs from dusk till dawn, and in any specific village-owned park property. So if you'll read it, you'll notice that we're very specific about adjacent property lines, adjoining property lines, that if that's the case, that we would shut the lights down at certain times and the park is closed during those hours. And this would allow some relief from the ongoing light encroachment. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mayor Newsom, just a question on, so with Habernickel, what would happen with the lighting there?
So the lights would actually go off. When the park is closed, they would go off, I guess whatever the time is. Let's just see what we wrote. And then if the park is opened, so let's just say there's a program going until 9 o'clock, so then the lights would go off at 9:30, and then there would be a reliance on sensor lighting. That would be the default lighting. And I think that's what's been there. And again, if we want to allow the residents the opportunity to enjoy their property. Yeah. And so I think this is a kind of a good middle ground.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, it would be sensor lights that would go on and off? I mean, if somebody...
Well, we had previously had sensor lights, okay. And they were actually, I think they're still on the structure, so we can go back to that and utilize the sensor lights as moving forward.
Thank you.
I know you'd asked for input from the police department, and we do have Chief Lusky here, if you'd like to have her.
Do you want to come up? Do you have any comments? Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lighting is one of the biggest deterrents for anything to happen in any of the parks. It makes it much easier to see what's going on during that time frame. Turning off the lights is something that we don't highly recommend. I would have to see how the sensors work. Circumventing sensors is usually something that's not too difficult, but a lot of it would depend on the quality of the sensors and if it actually made the lights come on, as opposed to turning on and then turning off again because everybody sits still.
Okay. And I think that, well, I know we had, some concerns there, but I think that we're looking into other security systems as well, so maybe that's something we have to look at as a more comprehensive security system. Some of the more high-end systems do allow for sensor lighting, and if there's any kind of movement, and it does pick up better on cameras as well, so maybe we have to look at that. But I think in this sense, we're just... I guess even in a more recent issue, the lights weren't necessarily a deterrent, which we learned very quickly. So the question is, how do we balance, and I suppose this is what we're grappling with, how do we balance the residents' right to enjoy the comfort of their backyards against our needs to want to secure? And we do know that our parks are closed, and we do know that to the extent that the lights necessarily were not a deterrent, but I think we have to look at security systems anyway, so I think we have to really study that aspect of it and make a good investment to protect the property as well.
I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. The next one are regulations for short-term vacation rentals. You have before you the City of Union City that prohibits them for rentals of 30 days or less to transients, and it's basically to preserve the residential character of the neighborhoods. And I know Mayor Knutson is going to speak on this as well.
Okay, so Airbnb is, there have been a lot of residents that have been concerned about what's called, shared resources, and I guess it's hosting. I actually don't remember the term. So we started to look at this with so many complaints from residents about transient traffic, people coming in and out, different vehicles, different suitcases, not even the ability to establish who their neighbors were any longer. And so we started to research, and Heather was very helpful in finding the Union City ordinance that was just passed similarly, and they're actually being passed all across the country to limit access to these short-term vacation rentals. And so we have the Union City ordinance in front of you, and I think Matt and I are working on the overall ordinance that we would look at for the village. So if there are any questions or concerns, what did they call it, a hosting platform? So, and again, this is in response to resident concerns about the level of transient traffic in certain neighborhoods.
Right, and actually, Mr. Rogers just handed this to me. There are actually 7 hosts who have hosted in Ridgewood in the past year and 50 inbound guests in the past year. Right. So it is a real issue.
It's a real issue, and like I said, we've had residents that have complained, that have been concerned, and we certainly need to address this on their behalf.
Okay. So the next item is the best practices inventory. This is an annual inventory sent out by the state, and in the past they've had 50 questions. This year, and the answers to the questions determine the amount of state aid you'll receive. The inventory this year was 30 questions, and the village, and there are 8 new questions. The village complied with all 8 of the new questions, but 2 of them require a formalized document. So we're going to put 2 things that are village practice into a resolution. One is that the tax collector reports responsibilities and collection of funds for pilots. We only have one, which is the Ridgecrest Senior Housing. And then the other one is the procedure used by the village when tax appeals are filed. And again, these are practices that we do, we just didn't have them written down. So this will allow us to answer this positively, that we have a written policy. And again, Mr. Rooney, I think we're going to get 100% or close to it. Okay, great. The next one is the Human Resources Manual. This is done annually, every 2 years, the Human Resources Manual is updated. This is required under our Municipal Excess Liability Fund, Joint Insurance Fund. There were 7 changes to the existing Human Resources Manual that came out from the MEL. The first one is an amendment to comply with the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which means that we prevent discrimination based upon pregnancy, childbirth, or pregnancy-related medical conditions. It also requires employers to provide reasonable accommodation for pregnant workers. The second change is on communication media policy to reflect changes in technology and practices in government. Change 3 is an addition of employee dating policy. It's an optional policy to require supervisor subordinate dating to notify human resources. Change 4 is addition of I-9 language. Change 5 is a modification to the Open Public Meetings Act procedures concerning personnel matters. This concerns rice notices and where you indicate whether or not the person is required to be at the closed session part of it. If they're given a rice notice, they said that although it may be advisable to have an employee in a closed session or part of a closed session, if they're served a rice notice, it's not mandatory. So that's the wording that they're kind of suggesting that we put into our personnel manual. The next one is a model employment application to be compliant with Ban the Box. In 2015, New Jersey Ban the Box legislation became effective, and that prohibits employers from asking on an employment application about an applicant's criminal background. So we're no longer allowed to do that. We have already changed that in 2015, but this puts it into written policy. And the last, change 7, is the updated SEPA notice, which is the whistleblower law. And so that's just to remove the former one. So we'll adopt this by resolution next week. This allows us to get our deductibles reduced for our MEL premiums, and this way we'll be in compliance with what they've asked us to do, which we always do every 2 years. So those were just the major changes. Other than that, it remains the same. Okay?
Were you going to ask a question?
No, and it's posted online, the manual.
It will be, right, exactly. Okay. The next one is actually Thin Blue Line. I sent you information about the fact that several North New Jersey towns have adopted and pointed thin blue lines between double yellow lines on a major street to show their support for law enforcement. Dating back decades, the thin blue line was used through the U.S. and Canada to symbolize the thin line between chaos and order, and many towns have been painting lines down important thoroughfares to show police that they have their backs and they support them. Towns include Lyndhurst, Ridgefield Park, Rivervale, Woodland Park, Dumont, Emerson, Carlstadt, Saddlebrook, Wyckoff, East Rutherford, and Wallington. I think it's a wonderful way to show our police department that we support them, and I just want your comments.
I think this is wonderful. I mean, I think we should have a thin blue line.
Okay, it would be on North Maple Avenue between Linwood and Franklin, correct? So that's where the blue would be between the yellow, right in front of Village Hall, Police Headquarters.
Village Hall. Right, nice.
Okay. The next one is a traffic calming proposal for Bogart Avenue and Cambridge Road. This will be a white edge line stripe painting approximately 36 inches offset from the face of the curb along the curve part of Bogart and Cambridge. This will increase motorist awareness of non-motor vehicle users in the public right-of-way. And this is as it approaches East Glen Avenue. So again, this is a traffic calming and a safety initiative. Sherman Road and Stanley Place, safety improvements. I think I'll have Mr. Rudder-Sauser come up. He and I met with Sergeant Chuck and, Sergeant Pullman and discussed this. So I asked him to just put together bullet points of things that we discussed, and as you can see, some were action items, and we've actually, he's followed up with some of them to take care of them. So perhaps you just want to go through the list briefly and indicate what still needs to be done and what needs council approval.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council again. There's been a number of traffic safety concerns regarding the Sherman Place, Godwin Avenue, Pomanda Walk area. It's been recently discussed at the Citizen Safety Advisory Committee, most recently at the most recent meeting. Sergeant Pullman was not available last week, and Sergeant Chuck stood in for him, and we met with two of the residents on Sherman Place. They showed us some of their concerns. We answered as many of their questions as we could, and there are some things we can do, looking at some parking restrictions on the section of Sherman Place between Godwin and that 90-degree turn. We met with some of the residents. They want some parking there, but not that much, and we agree because it looks like if it's fully parked up the street there, it makes it very difficult for turning movements off of Godwin. I also noticed that the street light at the corner is an old incandescent fixture. I coincidentally had met with PSE&G's lighting representative, took them over there, and I asked that it be upgraded to a current light. Hopefully they'll work on it soon. We did look at two of the street lights down at the intersection with Godwin because there was a pedestrian accident. I believe I mentioned in the memo, it was on September 24th, I believe. And PS informed us that those lights, while they may be obstructed by trees, it's not their responsibility to trim those trees back. So I forwarded a work request over the Parks Department to clean the trees off those two lights. One is a decorative pole, and the other one is a pole-mounted light, and that's on their work list to do. We have probably prepared an ordinance for that parking change for the council's consideration in a future meeting. Let's see. The police department is still going to be doing a speed study. Not at liberty to tell you anyone when, because I really don't know. They like to do it as a surprise. They'll usually run their weekly cycle, and we'll see what the speeds and the volume counts are on the street. I believe that'll be the third study they've done in that area. Another item that I've requested the Signal Division to install is a painted crosswalk across Washington Place along the westerly curb line of Sherman. Apparently that's a principal route that kids cross. We don't have a marked crosswalk there. There is, however, a stop sign on Sherman on both directions approaching Washington. A crosswalk is a simple add-on to, again, heighten a motorist awareness that's a crossing for the children going to GW. The police department has also been doing some work in the parking lot of 88 West Ridgewood Avenue. There is a concern that some of our residents are trying to take a shortcut through that parking lot, adding to the traffic loading on the street. One of the officers has stopped a number of people and has had discussions with them. We hope those discussions will be successful. Let's see. We got a sketch at the Citizen Safety Advisory Committee meeting from the chairman, Mr. DeMarco. He's got some good ideas. We're looking at those. There are some we can implement. A little bit of enhanced markings on the center line, and we'll look at seeing when we can get that installed. I also mentioned that I'm looking at a turn sign for northbound traffic on Sherman as it comes off of Godwin, making sure motorists understand as they approach that corner, it is a sharp turn. We're going to continue to be looking at this, we being the engineering division and the police department, and start to incrementally implement some of these upgrades, and hopefully that'll address some of the concerns.
Okay. Any questions?
Do you think that you'll have that ordinance for the no parking for next week? The no parking ordinance, will you have that for next week?
No.
Okay. Okay, so we'll introduce that in November? I mean, yeah, because it'll be an ordinance, correct?
Yeah, there'll be an ordinance.
So November, we'll introduce it.
Probably for the November cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
The next one is County Shared Services road resurfacing. This is basically agreeing to the procedures and conditions when the county resurfaces roads within the village. So, the last one under operations is the Historic Preservation Grant for the Zabritsky's Chandler House. Chris and Janet and I and some residents, Isabella Altano and Peggy Norris and Joseph Plicky, who were the historians for Ridgewood, went through the Shedler House, the Brisky Shedler House, and we are doing a stabilization project. I'm going to have Janet come up and just kind of speak to the to exactly what we're going to need to do in order to apply for funding and a grant through the Historic Preservation Trust Fund.
Good evening. Hello.
Is that on? That's not on.
There you go. It's not on.
It's not on. No, yeah, no, at the bottom, yeah.
It's on now, right?
There you go.
Yep. Okay. So we're addressing the stabilization of the Zabriskie Shedler House, and as the memo says, we just wanted you to know that we're following through on the Bergen County Historic Preservation Grant. And with the responsibility with that grant is to list this house on the State Historic Preservation list of historic places. So that will also be part of the project. We've contacted a consultant that we've used in the past when we did the train station roofs. And if you may not know, that's a National Historic Register buildings. So they're very strict guidelines. And we felt comfortable that this consultant has helped us reach every mark, because if you don't do it right, you're not going to get the grant funding responded to you. So we want to do it the first time the right way. And so it's a 50-50 split on the grant. And it specifically, we're looking to stabilize the roof and potentially any structural issues underneath the roof, which they'll only see when they get in there. And to restore the wood roof that would have been the original roof of that house, not the asphalt that's on there now. Right. And then the other is to correct and abate the mold and asbestos issues within the house. So it's a bit of a high number, $233,450, but that's going to protect the house, and then we'll have other things to do, but at least we'll have that choice.
Right.
And so the grant application is $116,725. We talked to Bergen County. It seems within the range of possibility. I don't want to ever guarantee anything, but we just wanted to put Ridgewood's best foot forward and wanted you to know the details.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, so we still have to start that process to be on the New Jersey list and then for the National Register. So we're in the process of doing that at this point?
We haven't started that. We do have a letter that certifies the eligibility, so that they do that first pass, and that shows you're on the right track, and then we have to do the other research and presentation. I've not done one before, but our consultant has and has actually worked there. So she's well known in presenting this. Okay. And so that would be we figured that should be part of the grant, and then they'll hopefully pay for part of that.
Okay, great.
So
Janet, is there any estimates on the other upgrades that need to be made to the house, electric, plumbing, heating, finishings, or finishes for ceilings? Any guesses to how much that would cost as well? And is that grantable as well?
You and Bob Rooney must be speaking the same language, because he's wanting to know that as well. And I have asked that of the consultant who's given us the things, and I haven't gotten it yet. And as soon as I do get it, I just wanted you to know the elements that have to be dealt with after we do this, and they are sizable. But nonetheless, that to do it right is what it is, and it's for a long time. Right. So, but I will certainly come back to you as soon as I get that number.
Thank you.
But I don't have it yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So the next item is a review of the October 12th public meeting agenda. We have two proclamations: National Diabetes Awareness Month and Recognize Alzheimer's Awareness Week. We have a presentation of certificates of recognition for the 2016 U.S. National Taekwondo Championship team. Under Ridgewood Water, we have resolutions. awarding contract for the feasibility study for removing PFCs at the car treatment facility, awarding a contract for design and construction of administrative services for various improvements at booster and transfer station, awarding contract for lead, copper, and quality parameter testing and consultation services, awarding contract for professional engineering services for various improvements to booster transfer stations. The next one is awarding contract for control valves at various locations, awarding professional, award a EUS contract for the SCADA software, hardware, and support, award additional award under state contract for materials and supplies, approving a change order for distribution improvements and Lakeview extension study, introduction of ordinances, update of the Health Department retail license fees, amending Chapter 265 vehicles and traffic for Bogart Avenue and Cambridge Road, although I think that may be a resolution. I'll check that. Various parking ordinances, which we discussed tonight. I didn't know how many there's going to be, and we probably won't know until Chris writes them all. And then also one for short-term rentals, which is the Airbnb. Public hearing, we have vehicles and traffic for Brookside Avenue, repealing ordinance 3532 on the audio-video recording of public meetings, yard waste regulations, administration of government, order of business relating to public comment, various capital improvement at Northwest Bergen Central Dispatch, amending 3547 for the sale of dogs and cats, and amending valet parking ordinance for Chestnut Street. Under resolutions, we have award of contract for rebid of furnishing and delivering of polymer for the water pollution control facility, awarding a partial contract for street paving, maybe it's an additional contract actually, extending the contract for the poster display advertising at the train station, shared services for the paving with the county, accepting the human resources manual, the lighting policy in the parks, the best practices resolutions, which we have to do 2 of them, authorizing a shared services agreement for fleet services with Washington Township, renewing the lease on the Chestnut Street lot garbage pad, authorizing the application for Open Space Trust Fund grant for Kings Pond, Gypsy Pond, authorizing application for Community Development Block Grant for Shedler property improvements, authorizing Open Space Master Plan Survey, Chapter 159 for accepting FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant for Generator Project, change in title and text for matching funds for FEMA grant, approving encouragement agreement for Tito's Burritos, authorizing the village manager to inquire with New Jersey Transit for interest in the Village of Ridgewood Train Station, New Jersey Transit parking garage, appointing members to the Financial Advisory Committee, establishing a stigma-free task force advisory committee, and I already mentioned the lighting. I think that I got everything, but if I go through it and find I missed one, because this agenda seemed to grow over the days, so I'll certainly add it. Of the ones I've spoken about, did you find one I missed, Donna, by any chance? Okay. And I just wanted to say, does anyone want any of these off of the consent agenda for the resolutions currently? If I do find that I've forgotten one or don't have one on here, I'll send it out to you and just make sure you're fine with having it on the consent agenda, okay? I guess the next thing is the manager's report, correct? Okay, so for manager's report, this is new and exciting this year for leaf collection. The theme is turning over a new leaf. We listened to residents and staff, and we've developed a plan. We identified a specific time frame for leaves to be put out into the street. So it's that full time frame that you can put the leaves out into the street. After that time frame is when the street crews will actually come through. So a flyer with each area's schedule is being sent out, mailed out to all residents. In addition, an e-notice will also be sent out. It will also be posted on the village website. And if you employ a landscaper, please make them aware of this. We're going to take pictures. Enforcement will still be key. We're going to take pictures after a street is cleared, so we will know if people put it out after the fact. If within the 2-week time frame, it's approximately 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, that you can put your leaves out. You can put them out anytime during that time, but just realize that once they've gone through, you cannot put them out again until your next time frame. And as I said, there will be enforcement again this year, but we think that our communication is going to be better. I want to remind everyone that Village Hall offices are closed this coming Monday in observance of Columbus Day. Village services are also suspended. They'll resume on Tuesday. And, of course, the police department is always open all these days. End of yard waste collection is Friday, October 21st. On Sunday, October 16th, from 1:30 to 3:30 is the fire open house. This is a free event. They have fire extinguisher training and demonstration, engine ladder and rescue company demonstrations, and there are delicious refreshments. So come on out, bring your families. It's a great family event, and the rain date is October 23rd. To celebrate the 100th anniversary of the national parks, the Recreation Department has scheduled a guided tour of local parklands and wildscapes. This will be held Sunday, October 16th from 1 to 4 p.m. The senior bus will pick people up at the stable for the tour. Reservations are required and can be done through the Ridgewood Recreation Department or through their website. The donation requested is $5 to the Ridgewood Wildscape Association. A Health Harvest Celebration, a partnership program of Ridgewood Recreation and Health Barn, was held Monday, October 3rd, and will also be held on October 12th. And this is on the holidays that the kids have off from school. They were held 9:30 to noon at the Habernickel Park. The attendance had 90% Ridgewood residents, grades K through 5. The children were divided into small groups making pumpkin smoothies, leaf art, nature hike, scavenger hunt, corn toss game, pumpkin patch walk. Fees were split between the two presenting partners on a 60-40 registration split. Access Ridgewood Twilight Dance will be held on October 8th from 7:30 to 9:30. It's a dance for middle school, high school, and recent high school grads. Access Ridgewood embraces abilities, disabilities, special gifts, and special needs. Access Weekend will follow on next weekend, October 14th, 15th, and 16th. That's a wonderful weekend, by the way, filled with things in the schools. There's a fashion show usually. There's, I know, a final interfaith service done on Sunday. It's really a special time. Very exciting, the new lighting at Memorial Park at Van Ness Square will take place Monday, October 17th at 7:30 p.m. The new donated lighting will be turned on for a special demonstration to show what the park will look like when the volunteer project is complete. This project is a collaboration with the Conservancy for Ridgewood Public Lands and the lighting design firm of Jane and Brooke Luminae. Household hazardous waste disposal, Sunday, October 16th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Bergen Community College. County ID is required, or your driver's license to prove that you're a county resident. Again, 9 to 3, Sunday, October 16th. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll go on to council reports. We'll start with Councilman Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor Knudsen. So last night, the planning board met to review the Ken Smith development, which is on the Ken Smith lot on Franklin Avenue. The building itself is 66 units. They're going to be purchased apartments slash condos. It's a total square footage of 24,000 square feet. The bottom floor will be retail, and that's about 5,500 square feet. It's a fairly long building on the frontage of Franklin Ave. It's 246 feet across Franklin Ave to Chestnut Street, and it's about 178 feet from Franklin Ave up Chestnut Street as you're walking up the hill. It's going to be 5 stories tall. The maximum height is 58 feet with an angled roof. There'll be a fitness center on the top floor for residents only. There will be 23 one-bedrooms, 41 two-bedrooms, and 2 3-bedrooms. The one-bedrooms will be 930 square feet on average. The two-bedrooms will be 1,285 square feet on average. The three-bedrooms will be 1,415 square feet on average. 10% of this is for affordable housing, with all of the three-bedroom units being used for affordable housing. I think the average is about 32 to 33 units per acre. Is that about right?
It is right.
Yeah, okay. There'll be 150 parking spaces about the building, and as you're going north on close to the train tracks. 125 of those will be for residents. 25 will be for retail. There are several issues that probably need to be resolved. One of them is if the retail space on the bottom floor is a restaurant, the question is where would the restaurant patrons park? You'd likely need a fair amount of parking for them, and we may not be able to accommodate, or it may be difficult to accommodate some of those parking places in and about town, since we have a parking problem. The retail spots will likely be in the parking lot. The question is where they're going to be in the parking lot, whether they're closer to the building or further away. The traffic light on the corner of Broad and Franklin, and there's going to be an entrance and exit for the development right there. That probably would need to be carefully thought out. There are issues with potential remediation of contamination on the site, and the question is how that would work. And then there are just general issues about traffic and parking in and around the central business district and how this is going to be affected by the development, namely additional visitors, restaurant traffic, etc. The next meeting on the Ken Smith site is December 6th. The next planning board meeting for looking at the site plans is, I think, it's on the 18th of October, and it's going to be Chestnut Village. Is that right?
Is it the 19th?
Wait a second.
Oh, no, it is the 18th. I'm sorry. It is.
Yeah, so it's October 18th. That's Tuesday night, and it will be Chestnut Village, the first hearing of that. So, thank you.
Okay, great. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. The Shade Tree Commission met last night. It was a vastly productive meeting. We had most of the commission was there. Tim Cronin, Director of Parks and Recreation, was there, and Ron Farr, our forestry consultant, was there. We worked out some of the details to the 5-year forestry management plan in real time, so we had everybody there. We got everybody's input. There are a few things that we still need, a map from the forester, and then we need a map and some things from engineering dealing with stormwater, and then another item or two from recycling. But the report should be the report should be done at the end of October is our timeline. So and we'll have a presentation in November to the Village Council. I have a copy of the report if anybody wants to see it early, because it's, like I said, there are a few missing things, but the bulk of it's there. And then once that's if the council decides to approve it, then the state approves it, and then that opens us up to a host of funding for tree-related issues. So that'll be a really great thing that we can do to help increase the canopy in Ridgewood that we've lost through storms and sidewalk repairs and the like. I also spent the better part of today at Bergen Community College at an event about race and diversity in suburbia. And it was hosted. It was put together by two Ridgewood residents, Dr. Phil Dolce, who is a professor there, and Frank Del Vecchio, who currently works at the county dispatch. And they had a great panel. It was an interesting discussion. At times, it was an uncomfortable discussion, but the subject matter of race relations and community policing and interactions with police and people of different ethnicities and races, it could always lead down that road of a little bit of uncomfortable kind of feelings for some of the people in the room. But it was a really open discussion. It was an honest discussion. It was a very, very good discussion. I think they're planning on trying to do some more of these, maybe locally, so it might be interesting to have something like that at some point here in Ridgewood, and look to see some of that develop further down the road. Just another side point, I'd just like to say that the library has to be doing a phenomenal job, because I was walking to the playground right over here with my son. He's a little bit more than 2.5 years old, and we're walking towards the playground. The playground's in sight, and he stops me and says, "Hey, I don't want to go here. I want to go to the library." So, I said, "Okay, let's go to the library." So we went and spent an hour in the library, and he didn't even want to go to the playground after that. So they're really doing something terrific over at the library to have a 2.5-year-old want to avoid the playground and just go to the library. So that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Walsh.
You must be doing a good job too, Mike.
Thank you.
My daughter was kicked out of story time when she was 2. She wouldn't be quiet. It's a running joke in our family. She wouldn't shut up. I had my Arts Council meeting last night, and still trying to, get our way forward in terms of the Arts Council and the Arts Foundation and how they can be collaborative and perhaps separate and make sure that everything is done properly. We had some other just general accounting questions that our CFO is going to help us with so that we do everything according to village policy and procedure. We are going to start the process of developing a policy for the Arts Council that we can submit to the village, and I think it's really just the process of getting everything going. So that's going to be happening within the coming weeks. And then my citizen safety meeting, I think last week I mentioned it was going to be this week, but it isn't. It's October 20th.
Okay, so that's it?
That's it. That's it for me.
We'll have Board of Ed, Chamber of Commerce, and CBD Advisory Committee all meet after tonight's meeting, so I'll have something to update you on hopefully next meeting.
So you don't want to give us an anticipation report, right? Okay, so it's my turn. So first, this has nothing to do with Village Council liaison, but this past Saturday, I had the opportunity, my husband and I, to attend a blessing of the animals at the Christ Episcopal Church, and it was really kind of fascinating. The Reverend Daniel Gunn gave the blessing to dogs, cats, a whole bunch of animals that were there. It was so community-oriented. It was so much fun. I understand there were some rabbits. I didn't notice them because the dogs were barking so loudly. It was a wonderful and beautiful service, and the animals were remarkably well-behaved. I wanted to thank Ann and Boyd Loving for the invitation. It was absolutely wonderful, and we just loved it. Highly recommend it when the next blessing comes up for anyone. Friday, council members will have the opportunity to join American Legion Post 53, the dinner honoring all Blue Star families, active duty personnel, and those recently released from duty. The dinner will take place at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, and I know we all look forward to the opportunity to honor our nation's heroes and their families. I'm out of order. Saturday, October 8th, 7:30 until 9:30, Access Ridgewood will host a twilight dance featuring a slide bar, mocktails, guest rapper D Fresh, and music by DJ Blickford. Again, the dance is part of Ridgewood Access program, embracing our abilities, disabilities, special gifts, and special needs. Ridgewood 4th of July Committee will be meeting Monday evening, October 10th, at the Firehouse. The meeting will begin at 7:30 promptly. All are welcome to be part of the tradition. Mark your calendars. Access Ridgewood 2016, and the village manager mentioned earlier, is scheduled for Friday, October 14th, Saturday, October 15th, and Sunday, October 16th. It's shaping up to be a truly exciting weekend with a packed calendar of events. Friday programs will be held in all village schools, including films and discussions, senior well-being program, 10 to 11:30 in the community center, family fun with Marcia Matthews, and Jester Gym, 6 to 7:30 in the Ridgewood Library Auditorium. Saturday, all-day events include family concert with Marlene Pillow, community fair, live music and dance events, Access Fashion Show, where young models of all abilities will rock the runway, a day in the life of a therapy dog, which sounds really fascinating, and lots of food and drink. Wrapping up on Saturday, folks can cheer as Ridgewood Soccer Association's very special players team up with Ridgewood High School girls soccer team to take on the Ridgewood Police and Fire fighters. So game on. I have my bet going. This weekend will end with Sunday Interfaith service at the Friends to Friends Community Church, where all are welcome to a special interfaith service among congregation comprised primarily of young adults with developmental disabilities. In closing, last week in my council report, I neglected to mention the hugely successful village-sponsored Good Life Ridgewood Mayor's Wellness Festival held on September 25th. It was really an amazing event, a variety of vendors with interactive booths, all geared to many different factors affecting health, including health, diet, healthy eating, exercise, grief counseling, educational, financial security, elder care, hearing and vision care, vitamins, skin care, yoga, holistic healing, bees and honeys. It was really just amazing. Represented were our own Parks and Recreation, Ridgewood Lacrosse, Promise Foundation, Stigma Free, which is really exciting because they presented this evening. So I just want to thank Jana Diorio, Michael Pickholtz, Elise Marige, Joan Groom, to name a few, and of course our Nancy Bigos and Dawn Strullo for making Good Life Ridgewood Mayor's Wellness Festival a wonderful event. So, and with that, we go back to public comments.
Good evening. Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. First of all, Village Manager Maylander, I love the name Turning Over a New Leaf. I think that's great. And I'm sure that
Rich Calby helped to come up with that along with the team.
Well, it's great. On various levels. Regarding Deputy Mayor Seaton's remarks about the library, I totally agree. The children's room at the library is an unbelievable gem. The programs that they run, the books that they have, the puppets, the little theater, it's a fantastic place. The other comment I wanted to make, the Deputy Mayor mentioned the race relations event that went on at Bergen Community College today, and I was talking to Linda McNamara, who attended it today, and we were talking about racism and implicit bias. And we were talking about an article that was in the Sunday Times by Nicholas Kristof, When Whites Just Don't Get It. And there is just so much racism rhetoric in the news today, it's exhausting. And so, therefore, I guess, I have to say I'm just so upset. I'm just shocked, really, that a ranking village official here would refer to a tree as a Patterson palm tree that grows best in ghettos. I thought that was horrible. I was very offended. It knocked the wind out of me. I know what that tree is, and it's also growing all over Hoboken. It's a tree that does well in urban areas with lots of pavement, but this sort of, I got nothing else to say about that. I was really offended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I went to the planning board meeting last night, and it's the first planning board meeting that I've been to in a while, and I was quite surprised, disappointed, in fact. Is a better word than surprised. I think Ms. Reynolds mentioned that there's no agenda passed out at those meetings. There's no material for the audience to look at in terms of trying to follow along with the presentations. So it seemed to be a bit of disorganization with respect to that. I know that you all appoint the planning board members. Perhaps you could speak to some of your appointees and encourage them to be a little bit more organized and a little bit more focused on the needs of the people who are attending the meeting by way of having agendas and materials to be handed out. I was also somewhat disappointed in the way that the chairman conducted that little discussion when somebody wanted to come up and make a public comment, and basically the person was told that you can't make a public comment. I thought that at public comment sessions you could comment. I believe there's a case now going on in Superior Court in Newark with respect to actions that Hoboken took in terms of ejecting somebody who made a public comment, and I thought we were done with having items on an agenda that says you can only comment about certain things. I understand that with respect to a public hearing, but not with respect to public comments. When there is a public comments section, the person should be able to comment about anything and should not be restricted to commenting only about certain things. So perhaps Mr. Rogers can talk to the attorney from the planning board, and perhaps that can all be straightened out. But in terms of agendas and materials that need to be handed out, I think that's something that could be easily taken care of. As my spouse mentioned, I was also quite offended by the remark made by a village employee tonight. I thought that was quite insulting to the residents of Patterson, suggesting that all of Patterson is a ghetto. It's totally inappropriate. It was a totally inappropriate comment to be made at a public meeting, and I would encourage you all to direct the manager to speak with this employee and ensure that nothing like that ever happens again in a public meeting. Thank you.
Ed Feltzot, 67 Heights Road, Ridgewood. So I just want to address the parking that was brought up earlier. I am and have been really for free parking in Ridgewood, same as other towns that surround us. I'm certainly not for raising the parking. It's business owners, small business owners are struggling to begin with. They're not exactly flourishing. I have friends of mine who own property in town, and I know their tenants aren't rolling in money. None of these businesses are making a fortune. So we really have to do everything we can to attract people into our town. I mean, retail in general is not doing well. Nordstrom's is not doing well. Macy's is not doing well. Obviously, Sports Authority and Kmart are not doing well. People don't have to go out shopping. It's easier to do it from your computer. So why put any hardships on them? I also feel that people who earn minimum wage shouldn't have to pay a nickel, dime, or quarter for parking. They should have free parking. It's those people cannot afford it. Making it minimum wage may not be a lot for the people in this room, but minimum wage worker cannot really afford that $10, $15, $20 a week. That's 5 to 10% of their salary. So that was really the other thing I want to address that I notice when I go through town on a weekend night is some of the restaurants like Root Steakhouse and Fish take up 5 to 6 parking spots for their valet parking. Is that really necessary when parking is so limited? How is that happening? I don't understand it. On another note, approaching New Jersey Transit, if I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, but aren't they facing a $131 million financial gap? I'm not sure they're exactly doing well to begin with. Why do we want them to come in here, and what demands are they going to make on our town? We don't need any more demands. We've already gone through that. What we do need parking. We need sensible parking, and we need a building that's going to house parking that fits in with our village. That's it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good evening. Saurabh Dani, 390 Bedford Road in Ridgewood. I just have some comments about, that was a very good discussion that you guys had today about parking, and just want to add some more points there. You may take them, some, or some may not be useful. One is, I did not understand the reasoning about reducing the non-resident rate from 1,500 to 1,000 or 750. There was no, during the discussions, there was no reason given for that, except that you don't want to make too many different badges, but the badge is issued by the village office, and they can be checking the residency, whether somebody's resident or not, and they can still issue, like they can charge 1,500 and still issue same color badge. So it's a badge for parking. It's not a badge for resident badge versus non-resident badge. So there was no good reason for why should the price go down for non-residents from 1,500 to 1,000. That will just increase the demand, because right now they are at 1,500, except at the park and ride. Park and ride, there's a law or requirement, but for within the CBD, we didn't hear any rationale for reducing the price. That was my one point. The second one was currently the Ridgewood parking permit allows you to park at any
parking spot, right, the commuter pass. You don't have to park at the spots. So any metered parking space you can park if you have a permit.
In any lot.
Currently.
Off-street. Currently, in any lot.
And all streets also?
No, not streets.
Not
street.
Okay, off-street, okay. And so when we will have these, I thought it was mainly for the parking distribution would be that as you go further from the train station, the rates would reduce. And streets will be more expensive than lots, so more people are going in the lot. But in the current proposal, Cottage Street is same price as street. So there's no incentive for a metered person to park at the Cottage Street. So I'm talking about the non-commuter hours. So for example, Saturday evening or the busy hours, people are not encouraged to park at Cottage Street versus on a regular street if the price is same. So Saturday evening, Friday evening, or any weekday evening when there are no commuters, then we are not incentivizing these parking lots compared to streets from the distribution perspective. That's just another point. And then when you vote on the ordinances, it would really help if you create the user guide before you vote on the ordinances, because when we were sitting in the audiences, it looked, you all have figured it out probably before today also because you have been working on it, but it looked a little complicated to us. So because of the way you were counting the numbers, whether all those numbers add up to the current demand of how many employee parking spots we have, how many permits are being issued, whether they all, so if you create that user guide that will go on the website, that okay, this is the new plan, as the end user we can follow that and we can provide the feedback. And while writing that user guide, you may come up with some problems that may not be apparent in the ordinances. Then when I was volunteering at the July 4th event, we were told that there are some people who walk in, they take the first few tickets or they buy the tickets in advance and then they try to copy them. So I heard about you're trying to do different colors, but is there a plan to prevent copying or fake parking? Because people do that for 4th of July events, so maybe people can do that for the parking tags or parking permits that will be hanging. So if there are numbering or, I don't know if it makes complicated, but people do that. So trying to make, okay. And there is a rail or black railing right behind the village taxi at the train station. So that discourages people to use the Cottage Street parking lot or any of the parking lots that are on that side of the town, because now you have to go, when you come from New York City, you have to go all the way to Hudson Street side of the train station to come out of the train station. You can't just walk down the steps. And I was talking to one of the gentlemen here, and he mentioned that was probably done because every exit has to be ADA compliant with ramps. So maybe that was the reason. So if there is any exemption there that, okay, we have some exits that are ADA compliant with the ramps, but there can be some exits which can be steps or stairs, that will reduce 3-4 minutes for somebody to go to Cottage Street if that's a commuter coming from the train station. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jane Shinazuka, 825 Norgate Drive. I know this is public comment, but I have kind of a question. When you were talking about the parking before, well, first of all, I think that Ridgewood faces a PR problem with their parking in the first place. You know, there are misconceptions, in my opinion, people from out of town and in town. So with the tiered plan, if I, for, say, don't have $1,000 or choose on principle not to spend the extra money, does that mean I will never again park my car in the street lot, or, you know, that's just not part of my life anymore, or is it just some allotted commuter spots, like half the lot? That's a little unclear. What is...
That's it.
You got it.
Yeah, there's certain spots there's designated spots for
It's not
commuters.
the whole lot?
And that's not the whole lot. And then the spots closest to, right along Broad Street and closest to...
There's like the spots where like the beautiful people park, and then there's the spots where...
Well, they're going to still be 3 hours, so the turnover will happen.
Okay.
And at those 25 spots or whatever.
And you can still park at the train station and use the meters. You don't have to be a $1,000
Right,
pass holder.
okay. So then what happens to those spots on the off hours? Do they turn over to be coin spots again? Nighttime, weekends, all of that?
Yes.
Yeah, the meters are still going to be there.
So what are the hours then?
6 to 6.
It's just 6 for the commuters?
It's from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Right, but then if you work in New York, nobody's home by 6 o'clock, right? So.
No, but by then you would have paid, so the meters go off at 6 in the lots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you would have paid for a full day had you worked, past 6.
So what the reality is, there are going to be X number in every area that's designated, that if you drive past there during the day and it's empty, you're not going in there. That's correct. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. Michael Volicue, 23 North Broad Street. Well, thank you very much to begin with, Mayor and Council, for spending so much time and energy in regards to our parking problems. And Councilman Voigt, I want to thank you very much for putting up with me for a serious amount of time in order to be able to compare notes. As promised to you, I did some research. I did some door-to-door, a little bit more unofficial way of asking questions and trying to figure out what the inputs are. Again, calculation, there are in excess of 800 cars. That's my findings that I'm going to share with you right now. In excess of 800 cars are owned by employees, which makes me believe one more time that finding a way to remove them from the parking meters should be very high on our priority list. I bounced a little bit idea of 25 cents in a dedicated for employees versus 75 in the streets, and I got a very good outcome. The idea was welcomed in general by employees and employers. The difference in between the 25 and 75, it's a great one. In addition to the fact that I don't have to go and just move the car and park that. So I think 25 to 75 seems to be a great idea. After that, the very important point that I was trying to mention the last time, and I agree definitely with you, it's the implementation. It got to be a very serious effort on getting the businesses involved on this venture. Stickers. Stickers are it's a very slippery slope, and in my opinion, they're supposed to be monthly because, especially in the restaurant business, we have a very, the turnout is very okay. And I'm going to say something that probably my peers are going to hate me for. I think those stickers supposed to be, at the end of the day, paid by the restaurants and the businesses. And they have to understand it's probably not a big expense, considering the fact that this will be the participation of the business owners on the effort of creating more parking for, at the end of the day, our businesses. So later on, probably there are phases and stages, like I understand. I just thought about it, hydraulic parking, which is very feasible for a long time. So, employees that are there for 8 hours, like, mine, for example, that's probably the idea of parking them on the... So at that point, you could take the 65 on that we're talking about, and all of a sudden they doubled. or even triple. And if it's not on the main street, probably is not that much of a problem with appearance. The app, I did some study with the app. The app is not a good idea at the end of the day. First of all, it need to be designed, need to be downloaded, and like the officer mentioned, it's probably an inconvenience. However, a safety problem. However, I think the village needs to have a very easy to read map of the parking areas. That the patrons, for example, in the restaurant, they do the research when they go to the restaurant. They check Yelp, they check TripAdvisor, and so on and so forth. And that would be a nice thing to have to check where to park. And probably another great idea will be, in my mind at least, is that every business to have a link to that map. So when you check a business, on the website is going to be a link with the available parking in town. So that is essential to me. Is the teamwork with the businesses. Simple allocation, I think, is essential, and this is something that I just thought for a minute when the lady mentioned about the image, PR. When it's complicated, I know it. When it's complicated, that might create a situation where people are going to get tickets not understanding for, and that will be detrimental to the image, to the PR. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
Ryan McWilliams, 431 Bogart Ave. I wanted to comment on the, what was called traffic calming for Bogart Ave and Cambridge Ave. After seeing the agenda and seeing it's a traffic calming, and it was explained that it's a white line, I believe that can be completely insufficient. It's going to be a waste of paint and a town employee's time putting it on the road. The problem that we have there, believe it to be an intersection. The problem isn't the traffic going through this intersection. The problem occurs when there are cars parked in the intersection there, and traffic has to circumvent cars that are parked on the outwards curve. I guess there's an S curve or sigmoid curve. And when cars park on the exterior curve of it, the car is far out into the street, and any other cars traveling, either north or south on Bogart Ave, have to go more around these cars that are parked. So just for driving, when cars are parked there, it can make for a dangerous situation. And what's more concerning to us are the lack of sidewalks. So for children that are walking to and from Travell School, which is right there, they have to walk out into the street. There are no sidewalks there, there are bushes there. They're forced into the street right at this outward curve where cars are often parked, especially at pickup 3 p.m. in the afternoon. People pull over there to park, as opposed to, parking on the south side of Glen, closer to Travell. It's just as close to Travell, and you just have to jump across Glen Ave to get there to pick your child up, or maybe they have a meeting in the school. I'd be more than happy to have cars parked in front of my house, which is only 100 feet further north on Bogart Ave, than having someone parked in this spot. If your tire is more than 6 inches off the curbs, that not good parking, because it's almost impossible to park your car accurately there. So a white line isn't going to solve any issue that we see at what I believe to be an intersection. We either need no parking, yellow painted curbs, signs, no parking, and enforced. I would like to see it all the way from Glen Ave up until the tangent point of the S-curve to, so that sight lines can be seen throughout the street, or we need sidewalks put in, so that children don't have to walk into the street at a point where if you're driving a car, you can't see them. If there's a parked car there, you can't see the children walking into the street. And if you're a child down here at 36 inches and there's a car parked there, you don't see a car coming. An adult, maybe we can see over the car that's parked and you can see that a car is coming. Children don't see that, and they don't listen for it. So please, traffic, don't waste the paint, don't waste the time. It needs no parking or sidewalks put in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lorraine Reynolds, 550 Windermere Avenue. I have a question. Heather might be the only one that can answer it. I don't know. Overnight parking passes, like for people that live in the apartments in downtown that don't get a parking spot with their apartment. Do you know how many of those you sell?
Offhand, I don't have the number. It's not a lot. I'd say less than 20.
Oh, that's it.
It's every 3 months, so it's $50 every 3 months.
Okay.
And then they have to come in and...
And what lots can they park in?
There are certain ones on the west side. They can park over by McMurphy's. They can park, I'm just trying to remember, I think Cottage may be one, I believe Hudson, and possibly Prospect. I can send you that information.
Okay, because that's what I was thinking, like Hudson, even if there's 10 of those, that means those people can park at Hudson from 6 p.m., say like on a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday night. That's taking up really prime real estate for 3, restaurant nights. What I'm suggesting is maybe the overnight parking passes should not be for Hudson or Prospect.
And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it is, so that's a good point.
Okay. I mean, that's just something to check into. I just thought of that, because 10 extra spaces on a Friday or Saturday night would be a lot. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Peter Quinn. I live at 66 Pomander Walk. Mayor and council members, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you. About 4 years ago, Pomander Walk had what we had considered to be a very intolerable situation with a lot of traffic being drawn to our one-block, undersized, dead-end cul-de-sac that's near the central business district. We had 2-hour parking, which was often abused, and brought a lot of traffic to the street, a lot of non-compliance, and over a 4-year process, we petitioned the village to be able to remove parking from the street from 8 o'clock until 8 o'clock. Over those 4 years, there's a lot of council meetings, a lot of citizen safety meetings, site visits from council members, talk with the engineers, and at that point, in the summertime, in the July timeframe, the signs went up, the parking was restricted, and the residents essentially were able to live on their street again. There were not multiple cars pulling around in the parking lot, speeding up the street, speeding back down the street. Remember, a cul-de-sac has twice the amount of traffic that a regular street does because, and that pours through the intersection at Godwin Avenue. Being able to pull out of the driveway, being able to pull back onto the street without risking a head-on collision, having the kids out in the front yard without cars whipping in and out of the driveway. If you notice, most residents are still, at least the ones with kids, are still parking their cars right at the end of their driveway, sort of as a defensive measure. That went into place in July. We're very thankful for the village's response, and it's really made all the difference. It was discouraging to hear that several single-digit weeks later, there was consideration of being able to reverse that relief. Streets that are near high-density commercial areas bear a unique burden. And our understanding is that Pomander Walk is perhaps the 10th of about 10 streets that border central business districts that have this kind of restriction. We do appreciate Deputy Mayor being able to send this to the Citizens Advisory Committee. I think one of the last advisory committees, we probably had half of our residents, and I think we had about a quarter of them here, but I know some of them had left previously. As this proceeds, as the conversation proceeds, we're very appreciative for the work that's been done also with Sherman Place. They're our neighbors. We can see what they're going through. Certainly, their solution is probably not the same solution that we chose, but they seem like good ideas that are moving forward. As you guys consider bringing parking back onto Pomander Walk, please don't. From a safety perspective, we really don't want to go back. It was a very tough time turning our small walk into a high-frequency parking lot for the commercial business district. And when the residents were last polled on this, they had over 70% response rate, and they were unanimous in asking for this parking ban. So please listen to the residents of Pomander Walk, and please do not bring parking back onto our street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm not talking about parking.
Good, thank you.
My name is Lenny Eisen, 762 Upper Boulevard. And what I want to talk about is, I don't think this has ever been brought up before. I walk around several days a week around Veterans Field. You know, it's about a quarter of a mile or whatever it is. And I noticed that the bottles are a problem. People who have water bottles throw them around. And I noticed that when there's a basket and a bottle container next to each other, most of the bottles are thrown into the container for the bottles with the round hole on top. But when there's no bottle container, people throw all kinds of stuff in there. And I don't know who's responsible for that. Also, bottles are sometimes thrown on the ground. Maybe those are people who are from out of town. They don't know what the rules and regulations are in this community. So I'm wondering, I don't know who's responsible for that, but I think it requires some attention. I mean, the bottles, some of these containers are filled to the top, and bottles are now dropping on the ground. So I thought you'd be interested in that. And then what are the other things you have to do? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other comments? So just a few notes I wanted to address. Last night's planning board meeting with the public comment period, it was a little confusing, I would say, given that for all these years we've had public comment on non-agenda items, and a specific item that someone wanted to comment on. I guess now we're going to have to look at, and I guess one of my questions was whether or not there was any law prohibiting somebody from just making any public comment during a planning board meeting, because this individual that wanted to comment was restricted to only non-agenda items. And there was no opportunity after the agenda item in question to comment. There was just there's nothing on our agenda that provides for somebody to at least come back to the microphone and respond. And so there was some confusion, and we're working this through and trying to figure out exactly what legally is required and what is appropriate. In terms of the materials being handed out to the planning board, this is a site plan application, and quite honestly, the only thing board members have to look at are these really huge site plan documents. I know during the master plan amendment hearings, there were a lot of really nice, beautiful, glossy photos and really like a lot of marketing material, for lack of a better word, but that's not in this application. So we didn't have those colorful, beautiful photos either. We had basically just the plans for the structure. So, but I do believe that we're going to be asking the developers for some additional materials that the public can follow, even if it's a smaller scale site plan, so they understand better what is being referred to. And in terms of the comment that was made earlier, I think it was an unfortunate comment, and it was certainly something that caught me off guard, and I would like to apologize to anyone for that being said. Thank you. And with that, we will take a resolution to go into closed session.
Resolution 16295, be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on October 5th, 2016, 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the caucus room on the 4th floor of Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include litigation and corresponding legal bills, authorization for settlement of claim, personnel matters to include police department and fire department, contractual matters to include share services agreement, Washington Township. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 et sec. And be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Thank you.